welcome back to another Nextlander podcast. Here we are, trucking through September. Brad and Alex, welcome to fall.
Well, I am. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I've played a lot of American Truck Simulator.
Very good, very good. No space trucking for you then?
I still can't get my head around some of the spatial mechanics in that game. Like, I think it's good. My brain is broken in a very specific way.
Look, you just need to think exactly like Isaac Newton, and you'll be fine.
Yes, use your Isaac Newton space trucker.
Why would I want to think like that, dude? He's dead.
Well, he ain't thinking about much, is he?
He ain't that smart, is he?
He couldn't figure out how to avoid death. Fall, my favorite season.
Eat shit, Newton.
Eat shit, Newton. Couldn't escape death. Can't escape gravity. Can't escape death. It's fucking science. Maybe you should have prayed harder. I don't really know what that means.
I don't either. I just assume everyone from that era was praying the shit out of everything.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he's a humanist. I don't know.
Yeah, was he religious? I don't know.
I don't know.
Again, safer to assume than not, but you never know.
We are here to talk about a bunch of stuff today. We got a bunch of games to talk about. And finally, after weeks, I can talk about the mysterious trip that I was on. That was not really that mysterious, but
finally, the shocking truth can be revealed.
One huge thing Microsoft doesn't want you to know about, and it's where Vinny was. So, you guys want to hear about the trip?
Yeah,
sure. Please do.
It was a trip to the Grand Canyon. So the embargo was up last week. We just recorded the podcast before the embargo was up. But trip to the Grand Canyon to see Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024.
Okay,
coming soon.
They have platforms built on the side of the canyon, like demo stations hanging out over
just,
nothing.
Like literally suspended over the Grand Canyon. That were like D-Box shared. You could fall out. No.
Didn't have a kiosk in the helicopter.
So a couple of things here. First is they don't really do well. There seem to be more of them, but there aren't as many of these destination trips for preview events as
the classic
maybe there
junket
once was. Yes, and so usually these days, and I rightfully so, I agree with the move, is to just have a local event and get some space and maybe have it in a headquarters or rent an office or do some local space, have some people come in and play a game.
Or increasingly, do it digitally, just hey, we're going to parsec you into this and you're just going to play on a computer in our office.
Or there are enough things too where you piggyback on whatever not E3 is or something else like that. So this was kind of a weird one. So Microsoft did pay for the travel to go out there, flights and hotel. And two things about that. We were, I think, was it one of them, GameSpot, Giant Bomb, something, we were very reluctant, I feel like, to take travel. I remember we would always turn it down unless we could pay for it ourselves. I can't remember which one, but we didn't take a lot of things. And then those trips kind of went away after a while. But there
a
were
lot of companies just kind of stopped doing them.
After the Palm Springs incident.
Yeah, the destination things. And the second thing, I'll say, obviously, they paid for the travel and the lodging there. You take that for what you will. I would have liked to have played Flight Simulator 2024 if it were in right here in New Jersey, but it'd been very nice as well in the grand old time of local New Jersey here.
Yeah, you go back and forth on those trips, right? It's cool to do for sure. Don't get me wrong. Were you on the Amsterdam trip, the X06?
Not X06. I was Japan. Barcelona. Sorry,
you did go to Barcelona. Okay, it's cool that I got to go to Amsterdam, for example, but also you're there to work.
Yeah.
I mean, in this case, you were seeing an embargoed game, so it's not like you saw the game and then immediately had to turn around and cut a video package about it that night, which is better. A lot of those trade show type things was okay, we're here to do a show all day and then generate all the content at night type stuff. So it was some of both, right? It was okay, this is awesome to get to go see a place like this, but also it is work. You are doing a job while you're there.
But in this case, it was an event trip. This was this was definitely, hey, we want you to do these events and play the game. This was a destination, a grand destination event trip. And shout out to the people who coordinated it. Look, I've worked in production nearly all my life. This seemed like a monster of a thing to coordinate for the people on the ground. to get people internationally, get people locally. I think they were running groups in the whole week. They made it as smooth as I think they could. So shout out to them as people. I feel like that's a job where you don't get recognition unless something goes wrong. And there's like a million moving pieces, and like anything else, a lot of hard work went into it. So the trip was me flying out super duper early on, I think Monday. It was like a 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. flight. Got out there by Monday. Tuesday was a call for the first of the events for the Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 Grand Canyon trip, which was touring. I think it was 6 a.m. call, tour the Grand Canyon in a Humvee, in a Hummer.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not in the Grand Canyon; it goes around the Grand Canyon, and you're kind of in I've never been in a Hummer before. I don't plan on ever really being in one again, but it was kind of. They take the sides off, so there's just you can kind of just lean out of the car, out of the Hummer, and you kind of tour around the rim there. I forget which rim we were on. The Grand Canyon, very big.
I've heard this.
Yeah, so
I've also seen it. I saw it. It hasn't been. I have not seen it since I was a kid, but I remember finding it very large.
Do they have like pet names for each like rim and each little hill? Like everything's probably got its own name there, right? For
probably.
the people who work, like the rangers that work there.
So we came into Arizona, so I'm sure if you know your geography, you can probably tell me which rim I was on of the Grand Canyon. But that's kind of where we were. So actually, when we flew into Phoenix, my flight to Phoenix, then had to take a short little flight to Flagstaff, and then had to take an hour and a half to almost 2 hour car ride from Flagstaff to the Grand Canyon, which was myself and another person in the car in like a town car with a driver, just chit-chatting it up, hour and a half, making some small talk. So the Humvee thing was cool. Again, I don't know if that would be a thing I would choose to do on my own if I were to go back to the Grand Canyon. But it was cool. The guides were very knowledgeable and they knew what they were talking about and got to make a couple of stops around. And then we came back and we played some Flight Simulator. And so
the reason you were there.
The reason I was there, but not a lot of it, because then there was a thing where you could go take a helicopter tour. Mm-hmm. Or they said if you want to, you could put your name into a hat and they will do a couple of people or more than a few could do a flight in the jet. So if you've seen Jeff Grubb's video, he does the jet thing. I opted to not even put my name in the hat because I wanted to do the helicopter thing. I wanted to see what
you wanted to spin
about.
It like a helicopter.
Want to spin it like a helicopter. So I did the helicopter thing, which was also very cool. And now that is a thing. And again, these are probably all ecological disasters, but that is a thing that I would maybe do again if I went there with my family again. I had been there when we did the cross country trip. And the helicopter thing was the first time I really got to appreciate the size of the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. And that flew over the Grand Canyon, did not dip into it, but there is this part where you're just driving over not the Grand Canyon leading up to it. It's all trees, all pine trees. And then the Grand Canyon just opens up underneath you. And it was intense. And every part of my body just retreated to my stomach. I just wanted to like curl up. And so I don't love heights. Everybody knows this if you're listening to this. And I was able to kind of get through it. I felt a little like you'd never been in a helicopter before. I somehow got the front seat because it's weight distribution, and I got the front seat on it, and just big glass, plexiglass, whatever it is, underneath me as the world went away. Felt pretty okay. A little dodgy maybe in the beginning there with my stomach. Actually, the only thing that was really making me feel like, oh boy, they'd have sick bags on the thing. The only thing that was maybe making me nervous was they must spray or wipe or do something with the headset mic that has to sit very close to your mouth, basically touching your lips, with Purell or some kind of sanitizer, and that smell was like kind of overwhelming. That like hand sanitizer smell was like a lot. Mixed with the part where I'm in a helicopter. Were
there any open windows at all, or were you fully enclosed in there?
No, you're enclosed in there. This is not like I don't know, some like Vietnam style or like news copter where we're leaning out taking pictures.
So not a lot of air circulation.
No, but I mean, there's like AC in it, and it's a modern helicopter, and our pilot was awesome, and but it was cool.
First time in a helicopter ever.
First time ever in a helicopter. I have not had occasion to be. Have you been in a helicopter before?
No.
Okay,
I don't know. I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could do it.
I could do it.
First time in a helicopter, Alex.
I'd be nervous. Like I would certainly have anxiety about it because it's a flying device I've never been in. But I mean, I don't have an intense fear of flying, so I feel like I would get over it at a certain point. It would. Yeah. I can understand why it would be nerve-wracking, though.
I don't have a fear of commercial flying, but small aircraft.
Sure.
I feel like the incident rate is a bit higher.
Yeah, like I don't love heights, but I play the averages. I play the numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the chances are very slim that something's going to happen here. And
not impossible, but very slim.
Not impossible, but very, very extremely unlikely. And I do take that cliche of probably more of a chance of something happening on the way to the airport than on the helicopter. But pilot was super cool, answered a bunch of questions. So I have all this footage, and I have pictures, and I have some stuff from the game and the presentation, and some interview stuff that I'm trying to put together in a package. Whether that goes up this week or in the near future, we have to see. I'm trying to put it all together into something that's kind of makes sense, and something that also makes sense about the game, which I'm about to get to in a second here, and not just about this trip to the Grand Canyon, which... there's a lot with the game here. They put on a pretty good presentation. A bunch of people came to speak. We got to speak to the teams involved. Do you guys have any questions out of the gate before I kind of launch into my flight simulator kind of what I think is interesting and new?
Did you get any kind of sense of what Asobo Studios' relationship with Microsoft is? They're just an independent studio, right?
That didn't come up, and it didn't come up in the way they were talking about it. So, no, I did not get an extremely detailed
I think they're an
sense.
Independent entity.
Yeah, I think they totally are their own thing. It's just weird because you think back in the day, you thought of Microsoft Flight Simulator being developed by the same people who made Microsoft Office.
Yeah,
it was very much. It felt like corporate software, and so
spreadsheet desk, flight simulator desk.
Yes, exactly. So the idea that an independent video game developer is making the current flight sims is just something for me to wrap my head around. Anyway,
so I think Microsoft is in charge of the game, and Asobo. So we got a big presentation from Jorg Newman, who's head of Microsoft Flight Simulator, right? Okay. And I believe he is a Microsoft employee, and he was the one who gave walked out, introduced the rest of the people. Then we got the CCO of Asobo, and the CEO of Asobo. Then those people came out and talked about their tech and stuff like that.
Not to belabor the point, I'll let you move on, but I will say real quick, I also just reminded myself Asobo also makes Plague Tale.
Yeah, makes or publishes? Makes?
I believe they develop. How's the rat technology in Flight Simulator?
Interesting you asked that question.
Okay.
Great segue to one of the things in Flight Simulator that they showed off that is kind of new are the activities. So you can get out of the plane. That's a big thing. And you could there's photo mode and taking pictures, and there's bush trips where you can take pictures of animals. So they talked about, I think, was it partnering with Zoo Tycoon to get some of the animals brought in because they had a friendly relationship there. Don't take my word exactly on that. I have to check my notes, but definitely partnering, trying to use assets to be we're going to have animals. Who's doing animals was a very funny slide. Flight Sim, the biggest thing I'll say, they are streaming in 2024. They're streaming in more data than having you just kind of install it all, or I shouldn't say all. There's petabytes of data, right? There's so much data for Flight Sim. If people who aren't in the Flight Simulator 2020 world, it's the map one. It's the one where the maps look awesome.
Yeah,
right. And that's a lot of data and stuff and and stuff like that. But that game took forever to launch.
Yeah, like you mentioned on the Tech Pod last week. Thank you again for guessing. Like you basically have an entire drive devoted just to your Flight Simulator 2020 install, right?
Yeah, well, it's Flight Sim and like miscellaneous non-Steam games, right? Which is like the majority of my library is Steam. But yes, and that thing, I have to manage that, and I have a lot of extras that come in for Flight Sim, and it's a lot. So now you'll have the base install and you'll stream in data as you need it, whether you're high altitude or low altitude, what country you're in, what region you're in. You're going to be caching. There's a rolling cache that will be caching that stuff and rolling it in. They seem to be pretty confident in that technology so that you won't be stalled or get the wrong resolution of anything. But it's a pretty major change for Flight Sim because that game was a beast, and you could launch that game and constantly just have updates running for forever. And just getting into that game, loading everything is intense. And they in interviews I was talking to New York, he would say like he would go to places. It's a simulator. This is still a simulator game.
Yeah.
He would go to places that are like you can imagine. That are like, we don't have very great computers here and not great internet connections, but we want to run your simulator in our weird airplane museum or something like that. And they're like, but every weekday when we launch it up, we've got hundreds of gigs of download. Not hundreds, but a lot.
Yeah. It's like the classic like person stationed on an aircraft carrier problem of like, okay, somebody in that extreme of an internet situation might not be able to play it, but I'm probably 98% of people will be fine.
So I asked about the like bandwidth stuff, and basically they said it shouldn't be that big of a difference in terms of this rolling cache. The bigger thing is like you're just pulling it in over time kind of and rolling through the cache instead of having to front load a lot of those things. I mentioned the activities. So there's a career mode in this now where you can kind of start with your pilot and get your pilot's license and work your way through. This is where I spend a lot of my time playing the game. Get certified and then get certified for different planes and take on activities in a full career mode, which is a pretty cool thing, I thought, to be like, oh, it's a structure to go in, get certified. They made the explicit point, and I asked them as well, like, how close to certification is this? They're like, it's not. It's a condensed version of getting certified. It's not like you are putting like all the hours like a Drew or somebody who's getting really certified in. But you can expand out and you can own like a fleet of aircraft at some point and take on different missions. They have a bunch of different stuff now where, you can be towing a banner behind you, like to unfurl the, to do advertising or whatever it is. You have to fly a route and do those kinds of things. They've added soft physics or enhanced the soft physics in the game. So they have balloons and things like that. The tech seems pretty intense. And one of the questions I asked their tech guy was, what cost? And they said that they have just basically multi-threaded a bunch of stuff and tried to optimize a bunch of stuff that wasn't before.
Okay.
To take advantage of basically what's inside people's PCs at this point to just have it run, simplified in parallel instead of, serialized.
Right.
Those processes. So
yeah, that's cool.
Again, this is what they are saying. I played it and it seemed to perform fine, but I was playing it on their spec PCs, which I didn't know the specs on. But will there be a performance hits? The specs for the for Flight Sim 2024 are bumped up a little bit from I think where they were. I think their ideal RAM count is like 64 gigs of RAM for their ideal.
All right.
Like
finally happened. A game has recommended, not required, but recommended 64. Okay.
Ideal. Recommended, I think, is 32.
Okay. Wait. Okay, hang on.
Yeah, there's three tiers.
There's now an ideal tier.
Yeah.
They're breaking new ground here. They're adding a third level of system requirements.
100%.
Yeah, well, I'm going to look them up actually very quickly here because I don't want to speak out of turn. So there was what I saw was minimum recommended, and then ideally this is what you'd have. And look, 64 gigs. I don't have 64. Do I have 64? I just put more RAM in this computer because they had it.
I think I have 32.
64, I feel like not a lot of people have.
Yeah, 32 is like the sensible minimum now for gaming.
Yeah.
64 if you just want headroom.
Yeah, so 16 minimum, 32 recommended, 64 ideally. And ideally, they want you to have a 4000 series card or NVIDIA, and ideally.
Yeah.
Minimum being a 970 and recommended being a 2080.
Okay.
And equivalents on the AMD side, obviously.
I just checked. They are launching day and date on Xbox, though, right? I believe. From the looks of things.
Gosh, they mostly talked about the PC version. Are they? Is it day and date? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised on the console.
November 19th, for Xbox.
So the biggest thing they talked about here, and look, I know there's a segment of our audience that doesn't really care that much about flight sim, but like the biggest thing they talked about, which I thought was really interesting in the interviews and when I had a chance to talk to them personally, was like, why do this? Like, what is the? And it was really to solve a lot of these problems, the load times, the kind of concerns that there wasn't enough to do activity wise, like for people. Like you can go in and you could run your flights, but like unless you're a hardcore sim person, there's not too much to keep you in some kind of loop or activity thing. There are now challenges also with leaderboards where you can kind of go in and like fly your fighter jet through the Grand Canyon through these goalposts and see who can get the best time, right?
Okay. Just go a little straight up pilot wings.
Yeah, a little bit. And so one of the things I asked was like, are you going to make your sim community mad? Are you now making this a video game instead of a sim, right? Like, and they were concerned about that. And they said in development, what wound up happening was a lot of people did grouse and express concerns. And then those are the people who wound up in these challenges the most, trying to get to the tops of the leaderboard.
Of course.
Because, one of the back and forths I had was like trying to balance those things where you have the barrier to entry isn't super high if somebody just wants to get in with an Xbox controller and fly the fighter jet through the Grand Canyon. But is there a skill ceiling that's high enough for somebody who really knows what they're doing to just kill it there, right? To be like, oh, I know how to actually maneuver this plane in a way that I'm going to hit the top of the leaderboard. So that those are cool. There's other activities as well. There's like, they are processing so much data. It is like you hear about it. It sounds like they're just making. They call their engine the digital twin. I think it's because you are making a twin of Earth. I think I didn't ask specifically why they call it the digital twin, because they are just modeling so much. I think they now have every oil rig now in a database.
Oh my god.
They're just trying to scoop up as much data, because not only are you a flight sim, you're an Earth sim, right? You are just taking everything that's on Earth because you want to be able to interact with those things.
Right. And I think that's why there's so much data that needs to be streamed, right? It's not like, oh, we're streaming 8K textures to you and that's why this thing is so big. It's like the data
volume.
set for like the straight up like topographical data of the Earth is so detailed and so big.
Well, and on top of that, it's stuff like they're tracking things like weather patterns, like it's just there's so much that they are feeding into you.
And a lot of these things just weren't tracked on that they talked about, York talked about specifically, was like they just aren't tracked in any formal database. So they have some of the most complete data for I think shipwrecks. He was trying to get. He was just calling like aggregate data. So some of the questions that our community had back when I was able to ask about where this before the trip got embargoed, I'd like to just address quickly here because they are pretty big things. This is a complete game. This is not a add-on for anything. This is a full game. There are multiple SKUs for this game. I think there are 4 big ones. This is not a, hey, I have 2020. Can I get 2024 stuff? No, you get 2024. A lot of the stuff seems to be third-party stuff. They couldn't commit to third-party stuff, but seemed like it would come in. If you bought a lot of stuff in 2020, they're hoping it will come in, because I have bought a lot of stuff in 2020. Third, what would you call something that is outside like a fourth party? Like, because they have a marketplace that has sell stuff, but you can I have stuff I have bought outside of the game, which is like, put this in your folder here, or like run this thing.
I didn't realize they let people they basically monetize mods.
Yeah. Yeah. Install this plane here, or I've got things that run like other navigation stuff that runs parallel, or more realism stuff that runs parallel to the game. I hope that stuff still works. That's not their responsibility to make it work. I just hope it still works. But the big thing is it is a full game, in case people don't know. Air traffic control was a big one. So air traffic control being like, hey, you want, or you would like to have very realistic traffic in your airport if you're trying to sim out here, right?
Mm-hmm.
They also aggregate traffic for airplanes, right? This is information they have. They know all the flights. All these flights are tracked. They have it all. How granular do you want? These things update like every couple of seconds, right? Like how granular do you want? So what it sounded like to me, people track planes. You need to know where the planes are, right? And I think a lot of this data is out there. But when you're running a sim, like, what are we doing here? Are we really? So I think what it sounded like to me is they basically average out some of the data they have to build a realistic model. And then they run that model using planes that not even are always controllable, but they will ask for the license to have them as non-controllable planes so they look realistic in the world.
That's wild.
Yeah, so even if they can't get the model necessarily to build a plane or to put it in the game, they will ask if they can just represent it in the world of the game so that it looks like traffic. So the traffic that happens in your airport should be representative of traffic that is happening. The bigger problem, this is where third parties come in, and I asked about this as well, is how do you insert yourself into that model, right? If you're going to have this traffic model running and then you're going to put yourself in there, what happens to all the other traffic, right? And insertion is a big problem, and they have not been able to address that yet. They said third parties are working on it. There are two big ones. It's in my notes. When I do the piece, I'll probably mention it. But they said it was too late in the game. They had made their big breakthroughs too late in the game to pull them into the Microsoft Flight 2024. York talked a lot about keeping the community and the people who are supporting Microsoft supporting them to not take over everything. He said when he wants to get a plane in, he looks for the person. He said he maintains a spreadsheet of everything that is being made or is in the game, and then tries to contact who has the best one and says, look, we want this in Flight Sim. Do you want to make it for us? Can we partner up and make it? So it seems to be like they're not trying to. This is a huge game. It's a huge world. And it really is filled up with a bunch of people making stuff for it. So he wants to keep fostering that and make sure that it seems like to me, represent as we are not trying to bully people out of making this stuff. We're not just going to take it over. If you've made the best Chinook, we're going to call you up to say, we would like this Chinook in our game.
Chinook.
I think Chinook was the one that he actually used as an example.
I did not realize that this game or these games were such a user generated content platform. Like it almost sounds like
massive.
It almost sounds like
I have spent hundreds of dollars putting stuff into this game.
Yeah,
and that's not just controller tech.
And I've spent thousands of dollars putting stuff into this game. The interesting thing is you'll just get one plane that is somebody who's like, I'm going to model this it's in the game already, but I'm going to give you the most realistic version. You want a model where you can pull the fuses out? I'm going to model that one. Interesting thing I asked him about was where do you draw the line on how granular you get with your model? So no weapons are allowed to be modeled in planes. Otherwise, you have to have some, I forget what it's called. There's an acronym, but it's clearance from Homeland Security to get the documents on this stuff to model it. And also, some safety procedures are just not modeled in the game because I wasn't sure if that was a regulation thing or what. But other than that, they said they tried to go as realistic as possible. But when you're flying the fighter jet, you're not going to fire missiles off. That's just not. That's not part of the thing. And
I assume there's some hard limits on just how fast things can go and stuff like that, right? Because you can't outpace the game's ability to stream in the world and stuff.
Maybe, I don't know. When I was talking to the tech guy for a while, I was like, so what thing couldn't you do? And they're like, so far we've been able to pretty much hit everything that's asked. I mean, there are features they had to cut that they couldn't put in, but It was mostly time, not necessarily yet because of some ridiculous limit. I mean, they talked about things that are like, hey, it would be great to have more people rendered in an environment, right? Humans, now that you can do this thing. I think York talked about like when you get out of the plane in the bush, quote unquote, I wanted to have bugs around you. So a bubble that is like mosquitoes and bugs and all this stuff around you, just trying to make it more and more realistic over time. Simulations they're running on turbulence and all of this stuff it's just bananas. It's bananas. Another thing that's not in the game quite yet, or at least they didn't talk about, were shared cockpits. One of the things, so like Brad, if you and I wanted to play together in the same plane, you're in the plane, I'm in the plane. The shared cockpit thing, technically, and I think third parties are working on some of this already. They kind of talked about, when I asked about it, like, well, say you're in the plane, Brad, and now you hit a button. That button has to immediately represent on my screen. Like the data transfer back, keeping everything in sync, the models in sync is kind of a lot to ask, right? Like everything has to be in sync and not go off, especially if you're putting on like autopilot or doing any of these things. So that's not in there yet. It's something they said that maybe they'll try to approach in the future with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I have to assume this is going to get years of updates and support.
So I asked them what the model is
the
here.
Long term, like are we talking about an every 4-year cycle, or is this like a special case?
So yeah, right. Are we talking Flight Sim 2028? And that's when he kind of talked about this 2024 was a response to the stuff they thought they could make better from 2020. The loading, the activities. He said, we'll see. He's like, they delivered on this last time, a new content or updated something every month for like the next 4 years. So they've got that plan on paper, at least. I think it was 4 years. Again, I'll double check my notes, but he said, well, I'll just have to reevaluate in 2028. So that's the kind of spiel. I played it. It feels very Flight Sim. I thought the career mode was very cool. The activities are cool. This is still a simulator. If you're getting into this and you load it up, the first thing that hit me was like, oh, right. This is a simulator. This is stitched together voice acting. They had not hired a voice actor. So it is still the kind of like, in your career, it is like, hello and welcome to Flight Simulator 2024. We will be getting off the ground in Phoenix. It is still pretty simulator. Right? It's not like Willem Dafoe is coming in to like voice your instructor. And they said they're not using, there's some machine learning in here, obviously processing a lot of this stuff, but I don't think there's any. If they are, they're using it very poorly. Any like generated voice stuff going on here. It sounds like pretty low level text to speech going on there, parsing happening. Could be wrong there, but he said they're not really using a lot of generative AI in that sense. A lot of machine learning stuff though. So it's still a simulator, but the activities and that stuff around it are cool. Being able to be outside of the plane to do checks on that. So you couldn't do this in 2020, at least natively in the game. Checking out your plane and doing a pre-flight check outside of the plane is now a thing you can do, which I think is cool. Maintaining or playing in career mode, I think is a cool thing. Being able to like look over your fleet, I think is a cool thing. I didn't get that far in career mode, but that's of interest to me. I don't think I'll do a lot of the activities and the leaderboard stuff, but certainly there were people at that event that spent the entire time or close to it, a lot of time doing that stuff.
Yeah, that's like the type of stuff that's probably the one thing that could get me to check something like this out, is just having some actual objectives to pursue. Because I'm never going to be the person that just gets in there and like, I'm going to fly from New York to Los Angeles because I just want to fly a plane for 5 hours. Like I need them to tell me like, hey, you should go do this and this in this specific way.
Yeah, and that's I think what some of the criticism might be the wrong word, but some of the feedback they got was exactly that. I need some activities. I need something to do.
A guiding force of some kind.
How do you get the activity? Are there just like quest givers hanging out, like chilling out in the hangar, or is it just off a menu?
No, so it's off a menu. So the activities and challenges are off a menu, and they have like a set of them. Or I can't remember if they rotate or come through. What the cadence of changing those is. And then the career is its own separate menu thing where you have like missions on the map of like, hey, you can take these flights. What do you want to do, and how do you want to make money, and what do you license for? Kind of a like Alex. It's a little like truck, American Truck Simulator. Right? Like you're going to take this flight, right? You're going to like sign up for this thing.
Yeah, I'm sure this is like this question is like nails on a chalkboard for the pure simulation people. But are you ranking up in career mode? Do you have like an XP meter, or are you getting like rewards for doing those missions? Yeah, like it's got to. I assume it's got to have some kind of progression.
So I need to check my footage again, but at the very least, you're working towards other licenses so that you can do more complicated things. You can't even start in a big. I couldn't start at Newark because I wasn't licensed really to be in a big airport. I had to start in like a little airport, and you're kind of a small business, and you're working your way up. To, it's like Wall Street Kid. You're working your way up to be a tycoon of the air industry. One of the things I think they do not have. Is like, hey, can we join forces and be a super, could you do it and I do it, and like, could we join business forces to run this airport? Could I hire you, or could you hire me to work it? I don't think that's part of this, but it is definitely a thing that the career mode was where I spent majority of my time playing, because I think that stuff is super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then the challenge league has the weekly challenges, and they're pretty short, and that's where the leaderboard stuff is. That's where like Grub was just like, killing it on the leaderboard, just really getting that jet plane going.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff. I kind of have to like parse through some of the interviews and my notes to really get into the kind of the really granular stuff here, but that's kind of the big picture. It seems like it is a more expanded version of 2020, and it has the big things are the activities. That's kind of what they've been pitching, the career mode, and then all the under the hood stuff, which I am nervous about. I am nervous about performance. I am nervous about Flight Sim 2020. I had performance issues, getting that thing into a good place. I'm nervous about the streaming, or let's just say I'm TBD on the streaming stuff like making sure that the right textures are coming in. They have modeled the ground now better. So there's deformation on the ground where if your wheel hits rocks, they have height. Whereas they used to just be textures kind of.
Mm-hmm.
It's where I think somebody said like it used to be sometimes easier to just land in the desert than on a runway because it was just a big flat texture. So now there's deformation, and you have to your wheels will interact with that deformation. But, it's hard for me to imagine that without a cost of processing. So we'll just have to kind of see how it runs in the real world.
There have been notable advancements, certainly in things like graphics card and processor technology since that last one came around. So, you would hope that they are, if you have a high enough end machine, maybe, they're getting around some of that. But yeah, there's never a guarantee. Like every time you add some new touch to it, you are inevitably like increasing the load, and they might just end up back at a place where it's like kind of how 2020 was on that generation's hardware.
Yeah, I think that probably the fact that it runs on an Xbox is at least somewhat promising. That if they've got it up and running on that platform, it's probably in a pretty good state. But you also
hope it runs well.
For a game that may be around for at least the next 4 years, it also raises the question of like, to what extent has the developer been briefed on Microsoft's plans for a new Xbox?
Mm-hmm.
Like, did they take any forthcoming specs? Assuming the specs have even been locked down, who knows? But like, did they have an eye on the next generation of console hardware when they were architecting this thing? I wonder.
I would assume.
You would hope, yeah.
I would assume that, yeah. I walked away fairly impressed with how robust it is, but also, again, playing on their hardware, with their, setup, it's really hard to gauge how this will work at home for me, and see how it goes. And if you're wondering, I think I was on a Thrustmaster. I looked it up right before we were recording their actual hardware, Thrustmaster yoke, the Boeing model, I think, when I looked it up. So, not my preferred one. That's not what I have at home, but I was able to manage just fine. It was okay. They had a little info card there, and then they had a controller next to you.
Calling them out here.
They put some people. Well, no, I think it's a fairly expensive setup.
I'm joking.
You get used to you get used to. But they had some. It was weird. Some people had a VR setup. Some people had a joystick setup. Like a HOTAS setup.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, and I had the flight yoke. So I'm not sure how they. I don't know if they knew I like a yoke. I think Grub got the HOTAS setup. That's how we can get those high scores on that fighter jet.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you guys have any other questions, feel free to hit me up. Like I said, I'm going to try and put together this piece with some video from the Grand Canyon, some of the B-roll they allowed us to capture while we were there. And I'll slice in some of the interview stuff I had and some of the other questions I was able to ask. I appreciate them giving us time to play and ask these questions. Again, the Grand Canyon stuff is cool. I don't know. I kind of want to just play Flight Sim. Like, I want to just sit there and give me 8 hours playing Flight Sim.
I get it.
I get it.
Yeah.
I also get it.
Yeah.
This sounds cool, though. And also, like, I'm sitting here listening to you describe this thing, which sounds awesome, and, like, 2020 is, like, quite popular, and it's, like, the narrative about Xbox generally, you know, is, like, they have no games, it's a disaster. And then, like, this thing is just quietly in the background, like, humming along. And it's just kind of awesome for a franchise this old to still be this, like, good and popular.
I think 2020 was their most popular ever.
And that's the thing, though, is that, like, this niche audience is not one that has been catered to in a significant way in some time. And now they had that game, and that game was a big success because it did the right things to cater to those people. And I can understand why this thing now has so much buzz around this new one. But yeah, I mean, that audience is always going to be there. They always want to be served by someone trying to give them the best possible experience they can have in whatever simulation they're trying to run. And I feel like, you know, maybe that's a way that Microsoft could maybe try and build back up some of that audience, is finding some of those niches out there, some of those, like, you know, hyper-specific audiences that aren't necessarily being served by the current slate of things.
Yeah, there are other hardcore flight sim stuff out. I think X-Plane is one that, but what I feel like Microsoft did is it's almost like, what is it? iRacing, Alex, is the one that people, like, really get into, but that's not Gran Turismo.
No,
like, it's
a
like,
different thing.
It's a different thing. And I feel like Flight Sim is a little more Gran Turismo with the polish and the kind of like, oh, okay, look, it's still, we really care about the cars in Gran Turismo. We really care about the driving experience, but we're selling a commercial big product here we want to reach, and it's not just for the most hardcore, right? And I feel like that's what Flight Sim is like. Look, we care about the planes, we care about the model, we care about all this stuff, but we're also making it try to appeal to a wide, bring other people in.
Yeah.
And look, man, there are people who play Flight Sim much more hardcore than I can even ever imagine. There are people who do live air traffic control and hook it into the game. And it's like, that's a level of stress I don't want with, like, some person on the other end of a air traffic control being like, what red light are you going on? I'll be like, I don't know. I just can't find it.
I don't know. I don't know where I am. I don't know how any of this shit works, and I'm scared.
Totally, yes. But, like, I watched Drew do that, and it's, like, intense because you have these people who are, like, trying to do air traffic control. Everybody's got their thing, man. Everyone's got their thing.
Everyone's got their thing. I got my trucks. You got your planes.
Yeah. That's Flight Sim 2024, or at least some of it.
What do I got?
What's your favorite kind of simulation?
Shooting the first person shooter, 90 mile per hour running.
That's right. Murder simulators.
There it is.
Thanks, Jack Thompson.
That game
is
building
games too. Like, that's, I think your version of that is just you like building stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I think we're out for that in November.
Yeah, November 19th, I think it was.
And again, there's like 4 different SKUs you can get in on that, ranging from the basic to the not so basic, and then, like, the super one, which is hundreds of dollars, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they each there's, like, a big grid. You can go look it up. What comes with what planes are in what, the deluxe version, this, that, and the other thing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Putting some more money into Flight Sim 2020.
That's the part you're most looking forward to, is putting some money into it.
Drop it. I'm actually really looking forward to doing that career mode.
I started to say, I note on the Steam page they have not announced pricing yet for any of these.
Oh, wait, for the SKUs?
Or at least not on the Steam page. Maybe it's out.
It's out. I think, let's see, standard edition, I think it's $60. Deluxe is $100. I think this is right. The premium
Deluxe
is $130.
Okay.
Premium Deluxe, and then Aviator Edition, is like $200.
Wow.
Aviator might, I don't, you should look this up, anybody who actually cares about this. Aviator might come with planes that were in the more deluxe versions of 2020. If you didn't have those, but I'm not 100% sure. You should look that up. But you're getting more planes and some more, better airports as you go up the edition line there. There's like the physical version too, which I think is like $260 or something like that. It comes with like a plane or something, not a real plane, but like a model of a plane. Yeah. I just bought more shit for Flight Sim 2020 like last weekend.
Gotta cut it off.
I really, really do. Anyway, that's Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. Like I said, I'm trying to cut together a thing with a little more condensed and some more footage in it. But when that goes up, hopefully soon. I was going to try and get it up this week, but it might be next week. All right. Should we take a break and come back and talk about other stuff?
Oh, sure. I suppose.
All right. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back in just a few moments. Stick around. This week's show is brought to you by Factor. Brad and Alex, you know that time you're hungry, you go to the fridge, you open it up, but you're so hungry you just want to eat and not make food. You just want, and then you start snacking while you're eating food, and then your food is ready, and you're like, I've kind of already eaten already, and now I have food already.
Every day of my life.
You just described every waking moment of my existence.
Well, what if I could tell you that you could have great food that is ready to eat in just 2 minutes? Well, Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. You open that fridge up, you take that food out, you get it prepped. 2 minutes later, you're putting it in your mouth hole. You're just good to go. You've gotten it where it needs to be. They have 35 different meals with 60 add-ons to choose from every week. They have breakfast to dessert, so you have a whole range there. Alex, I got some Factor. You got some Factor. What was your favorite part?
We've gotten plenty of Factor over the years, and I gotta say, they are generally deliver on the enjoyment factor. Good meals. Their vegetarian options I've found to be pretty good, even though I am not myself vegetarian. I like a good vegetarian meal when it is good. And but their juices, man, I'm telling you. Something about I like their smoothies the last time they sent them around. Most recently, they sent me a bunch of, I think, cold-pressed juices, and they were delicious.
Delicious. If you want to get in on this, you can head to factormeals.com/Nextlander50 and choose code Nextlander50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code Nextlander50 at factormeals.com/Nextlander50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Thanks, Factor. All right, we are back, and one of the things from Microsoft Flight Simulator was, making sure that I can burn some fuel in a Humvee and burn some fuel in a helicopter while the resources are there, so that I can bring about the heat death of the world and the planet. And that will bring us right into Frostpunk 2. Mm-hmm. Is it ever described what the Cataclysm is? The precursor event in front? Or is it just like look, you get it. It's gonna happen.
I'm trying to remember. The first game I feel like had some allusion to a human caused climate change event.
Oh, was it?
I don't remember exactly what it was, because once you're in the thick of that thing, you kind of start worrying about the how did we get here and more of the Jesus Christ, how do I survive this?
Who am I gonna eat?
Yeah, and at this point, it's just sort of pivoting off of the abject misery of the first game into the new one. I really liked the first Frostpunk as much as anyone could like a game that is about just an endless parade of human sadness. But I think what this game, at least for in the initial hours that I've spent with it, it feels like the direction here was, let's make this a more robust simulation. Let's give you more options and more things to build out and play around with, and some of the internal politics of what's going on here. A little less of the hammer you over the skull with everybody is fucking dying and sad.
So, Alex, what would you say the Frostpunk is? You kind of set up the world there, but it is a world where it is kind of an eternal winter.
It's Snowpiercer. Like it's the Snowpiercer thing of it is a new winter, a perma winter.
Is it maybe just the Ice Age came back?
Yeah.
Was that
it's a steampunk universe. Like all the technology is very steampunk. But I don't know that I can't remember if there was a human inside event or if it literally is just, hey, check it out, second Ice Age happening. But the idea being that the technological advancement kind of ended around the late 1800s version of steampunk.
Did you guys know we're still in an Ice Age?
Uh-oh.
You know, I was just sitting here waiting to say that.
I think we lost Vinny.
Oh, I thought Vinny was just rapt at what I was about to
His machine crashed, he said.
I thought he was very excited to find out about how we are actually still in a warm interglacial that began about 11,000 years ago, but technically we're still in an ice age.
I'm back. I got so freaked out by what you were saying, I had to reboot my machine.
Couldn't handle the knowledge that the Ice Age never ended.
You were stressing my computer out.
All of human civilization took place in the middle of a pause in an ice age, apparently.
And a pause in my recording. So
I mean, they're the same thing, basically.
So Frostpunk 2 and Frostpunk takes place during this period where society is basically centered around a giant furnace to try and keep warm. And Frostpunk 2 kind of picks up, like 30 years or so after the first one?
I think that's around the time frame they're talking about. But basically the gist is like the people... The leader who ran the previous, rebuilding of civilization and, the building out around that one engine that essentially became the heating device for everything is dying and at the beginning. And so you become the steward. And it's up to you now, and this is one of the big changes, to manage the different factions that live within your society and make sure that, like, you are striking enough of a balance so that none of them get so mad at you that they want you out of power.
So I only played the prologue, and I don't remember this from the original, but it seemed in the prologue they made a big deal out of, what is it called? Frost mining? Like you're digging out
frost breaking.
Frost breaking. Is that a new mechanic?
That's new.
Okay.
Yes, because the thing is, you could not really expand that far in the first game. Like it was like a very contained area. And so, like, now they're at the point where you're building districts instead of just, like, I mean, you do build some individual buildings, but now you are building things like extraction districts and housing districts and food districts and things like that.
So I was confused when in the tutorial, in the prologue, where they're like, do kind of break a path to a thing. And I was like, where are my people? Because in original Frostpunk, you would see the people, like, kind of marching out along the...
now it's vehicles.
Now it's vehicles, yeah. So... and you kind of build these pathways to a node. At least this is how it was in the tutorial. I don't know if this changes later on. You build a path out to a node, make a settlement there, and then that resource dwindles away, right? Like while it's being mined.
It depends. There are some that are renewable indefinitely.
Okay.
There are some that are extracted and then they are done. Like if you're going to one where it is like you are picking up essentially materials from like an old caravan or something, that will eventually be exhausted. If you're going to a thin vein, like a surface level vein of some kind of fuel source, that will eventually be exhausted. So one of the things you're building toward in an early game is trying to make it so you can extract deeper resources that are much more like available and renewable.
And so in your time with it, did you get to any choices that felt meaningful? Like I remember Frostpunk would have, events that would happen that's like, all right, like you mentioned before, is it time to turn on child labor and get the coal going, or people are going to freeze to death?
So there's still a tree where, you are unlocking different ideas and, and then eventually you're trying to pass specific laws. But now the thing with the laws is that there is a council of the, like, whatever, like, that is made up of all the people from the different, like, population factions that inhabit the city. And...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so, like, basically, when it comes up for session... If you do a bunch of stuff that kind of pisses off one faction or another, one way to get back in their good graces is to pass some kind of law that they want. So it is kind of managing these relationships between these different factions so that they don't vote you out of power.
How much was politics a factor in the first game? Like, I always thought of it as more of a city builder, but that's not a new thing, right?
Well, the council aspect of it is there was definitely a managing the satisfaction and happiness of your population as you were going along in the first game. but it was not about like these political factions. It was more about like, hey, like if you turn on child labor, a bunch of people are going to lose trust in you. Like it was about percentages more than factions.
Yeah, and this also has like smaller sliders, which are like, hey, it's a time for mandated overtime or rationing and stuff like that.
Do you want to tighten up the belt so that people don't eat as much during this period because you're preparing for a whiteout to come out, that kind of thing.
And it's like, I mean, I'm just looking at footage. I've always been like Frostpunk curious, but I never got around to playing the first one. Like it's not like an in the weeds city builder where you're like placing each individual building like a Sim City, right? Like
it's districts.
It's more like hex based from what I'm seeing here. Like you just kind of define, here's what this area is going to be.
Well, so here's what it is that when you frostbreak an area, you have to frostbreak a certain number of tiles, and then each of those districts or buildings has to take up a certain amount of real estate. But the thing is, you can kind of shape what that real estate looks like. So if you want like one long string that's just a path to this thing, it will occupy all that space. Or you can kind of build it out into a little bit of like a circle or something. It's limited, but basically it will shape itself to whatever you design.
And so this didn't come up as much in the tutorial, but I imagine distance from the generated heat makes a district less happy or less warm. Is that a thing?
Yeah, and heat is a limited resource because while you are, eventually once you get enough fuel, you can start charging up the engine a little bit more. There is like every single thing that you build has to have a tie to that heat source, and it is a finite thing.
Did they kind of have a goal set out for you yet in the amount you've played, the kind of end game goal?
It's not really the end game goal. It seems like this one is kind of broken up into sections story-wise.
Oh, like acts?
Like kind of, yeah. And I think I haven't gotten out of the first thing after the tutorial. I've been playing it for a while, but I haven't finished it. But, the first thing they want you to do when you get into the larger thing, which takes you kind of to what is, I think, New London, like essentially the big civilization from the last one, like you start expanding beyond the notion of what that was before. Like there are much larger land masses around you that you can start expanding out into, and you can also send expeditions into if you want to go find like new sources of fuel, things like that, or find new citizens, that kind of thing. So it really is much more about expansion than the first game was, which was really just about trying to make use of the limited amount of real estate you had while keeping enough of a human population alive and not wanting to murder you.
That makes sense because that was the kind of setup in Frostpunk 2's intro movie too, right? Was like, well, we're done with survival.
We must expand. Yeah, we are from the ruins of the British Empire, and now we must expand. It's like, cool, you didn't learn any fucking lessons from the British Empire, apparently.
Well, it was very much a enough with surviving, let's thrive.
Yeah,
right? Like,
let's start thriving in this still incredibly inhospitable wasteland.
Okay. The presentation, it seemed great in what I played. Very sharp, very well put together. It's still very dour, very gray.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, the art style is a big part of why I'm curious about the game in the first place. Like, the cities look so goddamn cool.
They do. I think the art design is phenomenal, top to bottom.
It's just like this, specifically, it's like this round thing. It's like a more grim version of Midgar, if that was possible.
Yeah.
It's like this round arrangement with these, like, all these lights, like, fanning out into the kind of surrounding areas. It's just very striking.
It's genuinely, like, the architecture and the design of everything that you're building has a real thoughtful feel to it. Like, it all feels like it makes sense within the context of this world. The only thing I have found, and again, I'm not super deep into it at this point, maybe things change as more systems start piling up, but the main thing about Frostpunk that has stuck with me since that first game came out is that it is genuinely emotionally kind of harrowing, and I don't say that about city builders ever. It's a game that really does kind of throw you into the muck of this human misery and the idea of barely hanging on, like literally just a fingernail's breadth away from everyone dying or, just fucking eating each other alive, just like bad shit. And this game seems a little less dedicated to that particular notion. It's not that these people aren't it isn't a hard scrabble life, or that there isn't a certain amount of misery that you have to manage in order for things to not go wrong for you. But it just, so far, I haven't really felt very much. It's lovely, and I think it's well designed as a city building kind of game goes. I just haven't really had that moment where I felt like it was actually sucking the emotional life out of me, like the first game did. And to some people, that is probably a good thing. For me, it was just kind of the standout aspect of it.
Did you hunt the seals in the prologue?
I did, but I told them no when they got to the end of that, and they were like, "We should just kill the rest of them because we have not hit our stockpile number yet." And I said, "No, we're not doing that. We're gonna make our target," and we did.
You did. You didn't have to have the older people march off into the snow to.
I said no extreme measures, and it worked out because I planned just well enough to make sure that did not happen.
There is definitely a part in the prologue, the tutorial prologue, where there's like this. The events are.
It's like an elderly grandma basically being like, I've lived a good long life.
Yeah,
maybe we should just go.
I don't need to use food anymore. Frostpunk 2, I've been looking forward to it. I think the presentation's very nice. The art looks great. I would like they do also make kind of explicitly clear in the beginning that you may not succeed in your run. This is you may need to do this a couple of times. It's okay.
They did that in the first game too.
Yeah.
It was very much like, hey, this is a hard experience. Like, you will probably not make every right decision the first time around.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I would like to check out more of it. It is available
I like it
now. Yeah.
Whatever minor qualms I might have about some tonal stuff, like I'm really enjoying it so far. I think it like from a design aspect, it is hitting a lot of like really solid notes.
Good first impression.
Yeah.
That's out now. It's on PC for $45 buckaroonies. Yeah.
Lower than I would have thought.
That's not the sale price either. That is just $45. Weird price point on it.
That first game was not super long or super deep, and I remember it. I think it was more like a $30 game. If this is just a bigger version of that with more to do, I could see that price point. How you get there.
Next thing I'd like to just talk about a bit here is Star Wars Outlaws. I kind of talked a little bit about maybe being in idle mode with it while they maybe address some things about the game performance-wise, mechanics-wise. They had said maybe they would... The impression I got was the developer was not extremely happy with the state of it at launch. And thought, okay, well, I'll play the version that they are happy with. But I decided to jump back in and just kind of power through.
I saw you on my friends list, and I checked your. Just said you had been playing for like 14 hours or something. I was like, I guess his willpower failed.
Yeah, I was I'm curious here. I want to get some of the upgrades. I don't know what I'm doing in the game. Is my main thing right now. I don't know. It's not like Final Fantasy Rebirth where I know I should be moving on. I feel like I'm making good progress just hanging out on that starter world.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got excellent rep with all the factions. I've got, but I'm on like the 4th main story quest. Like I just got the navigation for my hyperdrive, which is like very early on here. I think I just hit the main thrust of the story.
So have you gone into orbit yet?
Since I've been in orbit, but I haven't left I haven't gone to a different system yet. So I've been just kind of in orbit doing the space missions and doing stuff on the home world. Mostly feeling like, I don't know, I'll just do this until I get extremely bored. But I've been making such progress in my upgrade tree that I'm like, okay, I'll just keep going. I'll get all the skills, or I'll get as many skills as I want from the experts or whatever that are on each planet as much as I can. And I'll just kind of run around. And I have had fun just kind of running around, jumping into an Imperial base. It's weird. I have fun until I extremely don't have fun. Like it's a hard swing. There's like not a lot of middle ground there.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly how it was for me. I did get one tip last week, and I think I might have run into this at one point and forgotten about it, but the game never tells you this, but you can, the fee when the Imperials kill you that I complained about last week, they take a lot of your money. You can go hack, you can infiltrate one of their bases and hack a computer and get that money back, which I did not or had forgotten.
So this is a weird thing to say about a game, but many of the design choices they make, from button presses to how a thing rolls out, just feels like the opposite of what I would do. The button to get off the bike, I am constantly hitting I'm hitting the boost instead of the...
Well, it's been, so I have stuck to putting it down. I am going to come back to it when it's better and there's a new PlayStation out and stuff, but so I don't quite remember, but isn't it different buttons to get on and then off?
It's clicking R3 to get on and then hold circle to get off.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I remember like that constantly annoyed me when I was playing it, because you're constantly hitting the button you hit last to get on or off of it.
Well, I just hit square. I don't know why. There's a square seems to be the button to get off, and so I'm always hitting the wrong button there. And there's just like other little things that just feel like that's an interesting choice. I wouldn't have done that for this. Saving gets a little weird, and I kind of understand it, but saving, it's a lot of it is a stealth game. So you know you can get pulled at, you can blow a mission. And when you're doing these contracts that you can kind of just run over and over again, some of them will be like, you get one shot at this. If you blow it, this contract's going to be up. And I'm here to have fun, but also like I'm here to beat this contract. So you can save outside of any in neutral zones, but once you're in a faction territory, you can't save it. So
even if you have good rep with them.
So it seems like even if I have good rep with them. So it winds up me being like, oh, all right, I'll just go fast travel back out, save it, and then fast run back into the zone again so I can put my hard save in. It's not a huge deal. The penalties are not that big. Even if you're caught, you lose a little rep and you might get a financial penalty. They're not big deals. But, you know, I don't want to, it's more the time I spent. Some missions take a while, especially if I'm sneaking around. I'm like, I just don't want to have to do this mission, but if I'm reloading a save, I'm doing it anyway. The upgrades I'm getting are fun and they're okay. I kind of dig their little card game. Like it's not terrible. They're I forget what it's called.
Sabak or Sabic, depending on who you listen to.
So like that's okay. I haven't found it too challenging. It's jank adjacent. Like there's stuff that happens that is sometimes hilarious. Like it's got that whistle for your bike kind of thing. And sometimes that thing will just do circles around me.
Yeah. Yes.
Like it won't stop. It'll just keep like going for a while.
Or you hear it just like you hear a calamity behind you because it spawned like right into the cliff wall or whatever.
Yeah. It's, the AI will pile up in really dumb ways, and just kind of like get themselves into trouble where you're like, you guys are dopey. The AI also will not care if you just shot up like 3 guys and then run into like a waist high fern patch, and they're like, where'd she go? And I'm like, oh my god, the death troopers so eventually if you get your wanted level high enough with the Empire, you can't just it seems like maybe I have the mechanic wrong, but it seems like you can't just go to the terminal and wipe your slate clean. You have to go do this special thing that is surrounded by death troopers, which feels like they just sped up the animation on Stormtrooper because it looks like they Benny Hill around when they run. Yeah. They're just like they just run so quickly.
I don't like that when they do that.
It just seems so silly. They're not threatening. They should be like threatening, and they're just not threatening. The space combat stuff, it's okay. Yeah, I kind of like it. Being the ship controls are all right. It starts with this, in case anybody else drives you bananas, but starts with an auto leveling thing for your roll. I don't know what horizon they're trying to put you back on, but if you roll the ship, if you don't touch anything for a second, it'll roll back onto some game horizon, which I hated. But you can turn that off. It's in the advanced controls. Space stuff is fine. Is it sorry, real quick, is the space stuff more Rebel Assault or TIE Fighter? Or not Rebel Assault, sorry, like Rogue Leader. Oh, it's not TIE Fighter, it's more Rogue Leader. It's it's arcadey. It's very arcadey. It's you're just kind of, they actually, which I appreciate, you could just hold down left trigger and it'll match your speed and follow a target. So you could just shoot your weapon. It's pretty, you don't have to do that, but it's pretty arcadey. But I enjoy it. It's dumb and fun and silly, and I'm gonna keep going with it. But it is definitely like weird. It's like a game that feels stretched, like butter stretched over too much bread, or like spread. It's like there's something.
No, I know what you mean.
There's something that feels like it's
like
barely
there's a
holding
bigness that had to be hit, and they were trying to like fit that content to make it fit that entire size.
Well, what's interesting on that first planet, I originally felt like I was overwhelmed with stuff to do, or like spoiled for choice. And I was like, man, there's like a lot of stuff to find out here. Just a lot of locations. It's like, oh, here's a farm with stuff to climb and loot. Here's like a little cave that's got stuff. Like they're just running into stuff everywhere on top of the faction contracts, on top of the story missions, on top of the expert upgrades. Like it felt like a lot to do, but I could also see that stuff all probably getting pretty samey over time.
So one of the weird things is that a cave you might find that has, and again, this might be a thing of just staying on the planet and recycling content, but a cave you might find that is a scrapper cave. It's a set piece cave where they've got certain doors and things, and there are guys running their routines. You might be back in there every 6th contract doing another thing where the guys just respawn. Like, I know my way around the cave.
Yeah, that sounds very, very plausible.
It's a weird thing. It almost has a Dragon Age-ish, early Dragon Age-ish vibe, because that's how, I forget which one, I think it was the second one, had just these recycled set piece maps where you'd be like, oh, but the door is locked here now, and now you have to go this way. And sometimes it feels like, this contract wants me to put a data spike or something, or a transmitter somewhere. Oh, this cave, I know which way to go in here. I've killed this same guard 30 times already. He goes down. It's like a little Groundhog's Day. I know he goes down. That guy patrols over here. I know how to get through this. Which is, I find it's, again, I could leave anytime I want and go to
but also you can't.
But also I'm getting like, I'm rich. I'm a thief. Yeah. I'm making a ton of money.
Yeah, I'm curious how much you may be trivializing stuff to come by.
I hope so. By my whole goal.
By grinding the faction rep in particular, because if you know the way the game works, the better your rep, the more you can just stroll into their territory and do what you want. And I wonder if you're just going to breeze through large swaths of the late game because everybody likes you now.
So it's a weird thing too, and on the main faction stories, or sometimes on the main story, it's almost comical. You will do a thing, the Pikes want you to go steal a button. You steal the button, but at the end of it, here comes a Crimson Dawn person who's like, if you give me the button, I'll give you money. And then it just pauses and like, who are you going to go with? Crimson Dawn? It's called
moral choice, Vinny. Perhaps you've heard of it.
And so it'll be like, this will make the Pike faction go down, but the Crimson Dawn go up. So that it happens so often, it's like you just expect that to happen all the time.
Oh, so you're saying they slap those onto even the generic contracts?
No, so that's mostly the main story ones. The generic ones seem to just give you up faction with whichever one you want. So you can just grind. So if you do those and you're like, man, the Pike faction with that, just grind out some Pike contracts. And like, that's how I was able to get to, and you get, the other weird thing is like a lot of them, what feel like the biggest rewards are cosmetic rewards. Like all the Pike or Crimson Dawn or Hut stuff, at least as I've seen so far in your faction rep, are cosmetic things. Now, cosmetics do get some bonuses to the clothing. So it's not just, I shouldn't say it's just cosmetic, but it's like, take less damage when you wear these pants and stuff like that. Yeah. It's not just a new pair of pants.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen by now also the Nyx, right, as the pet.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Nyx meals are also perks of sorts.
I did see that. Yeah. And then, there's a lot of running around getting chests. I at this point just have some guides open for like the intel quests that are like, I stashed my life savings south of Tashuk Rock, and I'm like, great, show me on a map. I'm not
going to go get it myself, but you sure can have it, even though it's my life savings.
My life savings. So
I'll
usually hunt around a little bit, and then I'll be like, I can't find it. I'll just use one of these awesome interactive guides that somebody has made. So like I'm in the middle on liking it, but it is an easy, it's got that Assassin's Creed vibe. Like it's an easy, just run around, collect stuff that doesn't feel meaningless. It actually feels like you're getting resources. I'm constantly upgrading my bike, ship, and blaster. So it doesn't feel like I'm just burning through time. I am hoping that I am geared out when I move on. There are a bunch of other skills that I have not unlocked in the quote unquote, what are they called? Teachers? I forget what they're called. Experts. So I only have 3, but there are, I think, 5
9.
more.
I think it's 8 or 9 total. Yeah.
I feel like there's not one in the middle, which maybe they'll put like a Yoda in there and eventually or something. I assume the skill tree is going to give me plenty of opportunity to play the game and get those skills as well as I move on to other planets. So I'm going to keep going, grinding away at it. I did hit the point where I was like, I'm getting bored. I'm just going to go on my ship. I'm going to do the next story mission. And I did. Yep. That's what I did.
That's the way. That's the open world way.
Yeah. I did not realize this was having maybe a tepid response, which we'll get to maybe a little bit later when we talk about Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, Ubisoft has been fairly forthcoming that this has not performed to their expectations.
Yeah. My biggest gripe with it is, like I said, sometimes it feels like many of the design decisions just don't feel intuitive, or they feel like, why would you do that? Aside from the technical stuff, which is weird and goofy. It's, dumb. I would say. But what are you going to do? Star Wars Outlaws. I'm definitely going to keep plugging away. I have no idea what the mainline story is. If you're like, you can mainline this thing in 15 hours or you mainline this in 60 hours. I have zero clue.
It's the main story from what I read is actually relatively short. I mean, not short, but maybe like 15 hours or something.
Okay.
Like, I think I want to say I saw like a 40-hour number on like you kind of did everything. I mean, not everything, but like most of the side stuff as well. Like I think the main quest is maybe pretty self-contained.
I mean, I'll say this, even with excellent rep with I might not have excellent with the huts. That one might be on the bubble, but you can't go everywhere.
Those are the ones you can sacrifice.
Yes.
Those guys are assholes.
You still can't go everywhere. So the Crimson Dawn will still give you missions to do against the Pike, and it's not like you could just walk into every territory spot. Like there are still restricted territory spots.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. You open up vendors and they give you like some candy for being cool.
Candy, space candy. The Jabba stuff's not in there yet, right? Like that was something people were like kind of raising an eyebrow at. It's like, you got to pay extra to get the Jabba mission.
Wait, is that for real?
Oh yeah, totally. That was like part of the pre-order package. Was like get the Jabba the Hutt mission if you get the deluxe edition.
I don't know,
but I think that's coming later.
I'm still on that starter planet. Does Jabba go off world a lot? I don't know. I haven't made my way to any other planets yet.
I've looked at a list of planets. You might run into him at some point.
Yeah. I just got, like I said, I think I just kicked off what feels like, here's gonna be at least a big narrative arc, if not the main story here. So, pretty good. Look, I still think some of their running around in the cities is cool to see a fleshed out Star Wars world.
Yeah, that's just the general vibe of being in that world is a big part of why I like it.
Could use a couple more fast travel points.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes. Star Wars Outlaws continues to be out. $70.
It'll never not be out again.
Yeah. Well, you can't say that about video
these
games
days.
anymore.
You can't say that anymore.
Actually, what am I talking about?
Yeah.
It's almost like we have an ongoing story in news about that very thing.
All right. Let's see what else we got here. UFO 50 I touched. There's a couple of other things I touched here. Brad, you and I played some Deathsprint 66.
Yes.
Before the show.
So I'll say real quick, I'm still chipping away at Astrobot and Dead Rising, but not a lot to say about those this week.
Yeah, I'm same way with Astrobot.
I keep hoping one of you guys will play Dead Rising because I just want to talk about more Dead Rising. Actually, I spent a fair amount of time playing original Dead Rising 1 and 2 this weekend.
Oh, boy. Oh,
which
wow.
we don't need to really get into, I guess, unless somebody desperately wants to hear about it. Like I was straight up in there like fighting the same psychopaths in the original game to compare.
Oh, my gosh.
The clown is definitely harder in the original game.
Like I said, I like Dead Rising. I don't have like a desire to revisit it at this point.
Yeah, the first two. I actually played all 4 of them this weekend.
Oh, wow.
I went and loaded up my clear save on 3, and I never finished 4 because 4's. Anyway, it's those first 2. I think 2 is the peak for me, but both of the first 2 are the ones for me, and I hope they make more Dead Rising. Anyway,
I would love to see a new Dead Rising.
Yes, but like I'm surely they wouldn't do this, but not the direction they went with 3, and then especially in 4. Like where it got more and more westernized, more and more like generic open world game.
Mm-hmm.
Like it needs to be weird mechanically and tonally, comedically, the whole thing. Like it needs to be as batshit bizarre as the first Dead Rising was, but in 2020, whatever.
And make it in a fake. Do it in a Costco or do it in like a fake amusement park. Because I think a fake amusement park would be pretty good.
Yeah, there's a lot of maybe look at the Hitman.
Okay, I've got
games for inspiration.
I've got it. And this is one that I would only come up to because I've been to this place. The QVC compound.
Okay.
That'd be pretty
home
good.
Shopping network compound.
Actually, I think I'm stealing this from I think somebody emailed when we were talking about like fantasy Hitman levels. I think somebody emailed this in for Hitman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to steal this for Dead Rising. Put Dead Rising in E3.
Oh,
God, that's not bad at all.
What if you were trapped in a facsimile of the Los Angeles Convention Center?
I would slightly modify it to say it should probably be at E3, but combined with CES, so there's fun tech to get.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, you would fictionalize like the name of the show, and you could definitely cram some more consumer tech in there. But like, also just think about all the stupid promotional stuff at different booths that you could come up with.
Yes.
Like it would.
And all the mean jokes you can make about all the marketing executives you had to work with over the years that you could now put in the game.
Like lampooning the game industry in the course of this would be amazing. Like it's definitely a thought exercise as you think about what the hell would Dead Rising be 18 years after it came out, you know? Because like you can't do another shopping mall. I would argue you shouldn't just go straight back to Frank West again.
Right.
Because I think the game is more interesting when you mix up the characters as well.
Like Frank West should be like, you know, at this stage of the game, like some just god-awful cable news talking head, like just completely fucking descended into like alcoholism and hubris and is just an awful person that is constantly on a TV screen.
Frank West was putting in an appearance at a booth at this convention.
Yeah, so I was just going to say.
Yes.
And now he's a psychopath.
Autograph session with Frank West.
Now Frank West is a psychopath. I don't know. But like, do something unexpected, you know? Like the bigger thing is like every time they have like run out of road on this franchise, they've just run back to Frank. You know, it's like when I think Dead Rising 2 did fine, but when not everybody loved the switch to Chuck Green, they put out Off the Record, which literally just subtracts Chuck Green from 2 and puts Frank West in his place. And then the same thing with 4, when like the franchise was kind of running out of steam, they ran screaming back to Frank for 4 again.
So, okay. I think they should do a thing on your E3 thing here. They should do like a super con, right? Which is all a bunch of hobbies, right? It combines Comic-Con, TV, like made up like every con. So you can have all like Knife Con. So there's like all weird booths. And Frank West should be there, and he should have like nobody signing stuff for him. And his arc should be that at some point he will sacrifice himself as an AI. He will sacrifice himself so that you can get away. But by holding a door shut. But as soon as it cuts and you run away, it cuts back to him trying to escape. And and that should be the end. He should just run away, right? Mm-hmm. And that should be Frank West's arc. Like he's like kind of a sleazebag, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So like, there should be a thing where he's like, I will stay here. I will go ahead. I've dealt with this before. And then as soon as you go through the door, he's running to loot something or get some money and like get out of there, and just leave it like that. Just leave him like wandering around like that.
Like just finally make him the Alex Jones we've always known he was destined to become.
There's so much that you could do.
Yes.
And they're still willing to get weird with it. The one thing I will say before we move on, we should talk about Deathsprint, but I mentioned I really miss the combo weapons in this because those were in 2 and they're not in 1, and those are very fun. They didn't quite get there with this, but they did. Do you remember the blenders in 1?
Yeah, for the RJ.
You just you cram any food items into the blenders and get like shakes out that give you different powers and stuff. They have stealth added some kind of basic combo weapon stuff to the blenders now. Like, you can now stick 2 submachine guns in the blender and get a regular machine gun out.
Will
That's
they blend?
Pretty good.
Yes.
And shit like that.
Does it like combine their durability?
I think it's just the regular item you're getting out, because the regular machine gun exists elsewhere in the game as well. It's just regular items you're getting out. They didn't like come up with new combo items for this game, but they did kind of give you that capability a little bit. So like they did add some interesting stuff to this.
That's very solid.
Yeah.
All right. From Dead Rising to Deathsprint 66.
Yes. I came out of, we talked a fair amount about this coming out of Summer Game Fest. I played this there. This is that on foot parkour Mario Kart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I guess I would say it's an on foot racer, but you play it like a racing game where right trigger accelerates you, but it has wall running and parkour and rail grinding and zip lines.
A little death race ish, except on foot.
Yes, it's very cyber looking. It's a good looking game. It's nice and shiny.
Fast
on PC.
Okay, have either of you seen either of the Death Races?
Yeah,
I have not.
Saw the
Corman original
one?
or the Statham remake.
Yeah, I saw the remake.
Both great movies in their own right. You should watch them.
Is there a Statham era remake of that? Or wow.
Yes, and it's a surprisingly good movie. It was from the mid 2000s, I think.
Interesting.
Who is it? Fucking Joan Allen is like the evil warden in that movie.
Oh, it's a Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yes, and a surprisingly good one.
All right. Well, this is on foot, but I will defer.
Same
to
idea of just like futuristic death race.
That's exactly it. It's very much a futuristic death sport. There's an announcer. you're getting ground up by lasers or like spinning saw blades all the time.
Your
like
clone is, right?
They clone you. They clone you back into the race when you die. That game's still cool. I liked it quite a bit, seeing it at Summer Game Fest. It pains me to say I think it is dead on arrival.
Oh.
There was nobody playing it this morning.
What are you talking about? We raced with like 6 other people.
They sure all had all caps names that were very much just regular first names.
Yeah. So my initial impression when I did the tutorial sitting there was this game really does move very quickly. Like it's
very fast.
It's faster than I was expecting it to be. It's a little more. It's fairly kinetic. You'd think running around, but you are hitting boost pads. You are dodging lasers. You are getting power ups. Sometimes the power ups, everything's moving so fast. You're waiting for the announcer to say what you got, so that you know what you got, because you can't look off to the side, to see what the icon is.
Because, like even when you're like grinding a rail, there's lean mechanic, because sometimes you have to lean out of the way of like a laser or a blade that's going to kill you if you're leaning the wrong way. So it's super fast.
I missed a fair amount of transitions from like wall to like I jump over the track or something like that. But that's just me getting used to the controls.
Yeah. You can drift, which I think is funny for an on foot racer.
Yes. You build up drift meter too, so you come out of it into a. I think the funniest thing to me was I hit it once in the races we did. There's totally a beep, beep, beep. All right, hold down now. And you get like a little boost out of the gates.
Yep. Yes, it full on has the Mario Kart, like one pip before you go, you get the boost.
Yeah.
It's fun. I like it. It does. A couple of those races seemed a little laggy, where it was just like my guide clearly made it over this obstacle, but I still died because the game thought I landed on it, even though on my end it looked like I cleared it.
Okay,
stuff.
I didn't have too much of that.
It was only in like one race, so I don't know if maybe it was the one other player we found tracking us down. Because what is it? Is it 8 players per race? I think
it was 8.
I have outside of you, I have found a grand total of 2 other people, real people in online races. The rest is all bots. And like the Steam reviews, there are not a ton of them, but several of the reviews even say since launch, it's just like, hey, there's like a critically small number of people playing this. Like there just is not a community to support this, which is a real bummer. It's $25. Like, not going to just straight up draw a line from Concord to this, but like I feel like it's becoming more and more of a question of like, can you sell a multiplayer only game these days at all?
Yes, you definitely, but like at what risk, right?
Yeah. But yeah, especially, I guess, yes, it's more for like a game in this tier where it's like, it's a small game by a presumably small team. Like it got some marketing, but not a ton. Like there was always a chance a game like this would fly under the radar regardless. But like once you put a price on it as a barrier to entry on top of everything else, like, is that just the kiss of death if you already don't have some like some buzz or some hook built in that's going to get you attention?
Yeah. I don't know. In a way, I kind of hope not, because I do also like a game where you just pay to play or pay for entry and then don't have to get hit with monetization over and over again.
Yes, because this game I asked when I talked to the developers, and this has no monetization past the sticker price. Like everything is just cosmetic unlocks. It's
my preference, but I don't know. It's a crowded market out there for people's time. But I had fun in the couple of races we did. I obviously didn't play a ton.
Yeah, it's only on PC. Like obviously porting to consoles is even more money. I don't know if they have more money to spend on it or not, but like if it came to other platforms and it went free to play, maybe it would pick up an audience because it is cool and kind of unique.
Yeah, I say this just because the audience is there, but if this had a Game Pass equivalent,
yes,
it could be picking up players,
or like the PS Plus monthly game or whatever.
Yeah. Brad, you played a little Beyond Shadowgate, just to kind of prep us.
I think this was kickstarted and has been like in the works for a while, but I had no idea about it until it came out recently. When did it come out? It's like a week old or something.
September 19th is the launch date.
God, that was it was last week. Yes, they made a sequel to Shadowgate, like the NES one.
Okay.
Even though Shadowgate has been on multiple platforms, but this is very, very visibly a sequel to the NES one in particular.
Beyond Shadowgate.
So like the provenance of this is really weird because, well, here's what the Steam page says. The original design of the never before seen point and click adventure is being brought to life after 30 years in the vault.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, that sounds like a backstory. What do you mean? And then I couldn't find anything about that until somebody on the Discord sent me an article on hardcoregaming101.net.
Okay.
So there was a TurboGrafx game called Beyond Shadowgate back in the day, but it's a very different kind of game. It's like a more traditional point-and-click adventure where you move your character around, like a third-person standard graphical adventure of that era, not the kind of first-person dungeon crawl style. I guess what happened is the developers of the NES Shadowgate like had a script and design kind of ready to go for an NES sequel, and then somehow the game got given to a different developer instead, who decided to just throw all that out and start over on something totally different.
Oh, and only on TurboGrafx?
Yes, I believe that's the case, which is a strange choice. But anyway, apparently, like, this script has been sitting around. Like, some design work for this game has been sitting around for 30-something years.
And now it's realized.
And now they've made it.
Well, it sounds like we might be taking a look at this later this week.
So I fired it up just because I really needed to just see some of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the patrons have spoken. It sounds like Abby Russell is going to be joining us to stream this game on Friday. So I knew I couldn't get too far in. To allay your concerns, I only got to the second screen.
Okay.
Basically. But it's very much exactly that same like 8 actions you can do. Take, open, hit, close.
Okay.
Look. Same inventory. Some quality. There's a map built in. There's a like full map, like auto completing map as you move around, which is a nice quality of life thing.
Nice.
Other than that, it's very much that game.
All right.
So I'm not sold on the writing yet, I will say.
Is it acted?
No, there's no voice.
Okay.
Like the music is even very much like chiptune style.
Okay.
But it's definitely got like digital sound work, like modern, you hear a fire crackling, stuff they could not have done on the NES. The writing in that NES game is good generally, and by NES standards, it's completely astonishing. that it's even coherent, let alone like actually quite well written, like very breezy, like very readable. This feels a bit verbose by comparison. If I can nitpick a little bit, like it's a little overly wordy from what I've seen, but the puzzles seem good, and it's huge. Apparently, it's like 5 times the size of the original game.
Oh wow! Okay,
the original game had 40 screens, and this one has like 250.
The thing I will probably look up, or maybe it says, is there any kind of death state in the game where you can lock yourself out or you die? Because the original you fell in pits and stuff, right?
Yes, and there's also, I guess, do you remember this when we streamed it? There's a timer in the original game. Or did I? Because there is some kind of timer in this. Because in the settings, there's a setting for time pressure, and it's either default or infinite.
Oh, jeez.
You can turn off whatever time pressure exists in this game, which I will not do.
Huh. Oh boy, best of luck.
The real experience.
Oh no.
But I can't think of in the first game, like your torches burn down and then you can't see. But other than that, I can't remember too much about like a ticking timer.
No.
But anyway, I'm excited.
On the bridge.
Yeah. Shadowgate is an all-time classic, and I hope this game lives up to it.
Beyond Shadowgate. Well, hopefully we'll see more of it on Friday. I think that is going to wrap up our game section. Like we said, we're nibbling away at other things. I'm continuing to nibble away at some Space Marine.
Why is that the metaphor you're going for?
Nibble?
Yeah, why is that the one?
Because that's why I nibble heresy. And
all right.
I want the heretics must be nibbled. Chewing? Chewing away. Nibbling.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not full on chewing. I'm just nibbling. I'm taking little bites.
All right.
Yeah. That's going to do it for the games we've been playing, but we got plenty more to talk about. We've got some news here. We've got some news that broke right before we were recording. We're going to get to that in just a second, but first we got to take a break. Stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back. And we are recording this probably about, let's say 2 hours into it. Ubisoft's announcement that Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be delayed.
Yeah, it's kind of a rare instance of like the story I had linked in here updated itself with this news. Because originally this was going to be us saying like, Ubisoft has mysteriously canceled all the preview events for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and they've also pulled out of
presence.
they've also pulled out of TGS. Although It sounded like that was maybe like they described it as like online presence. I mean, was that just a stream actually?
I'm not sure. The kind of story was kind of winking, nodding, and be like something going on here.
Yeah. And anyway, and it's been a weird year for Ubisoft. The revenue is pretty down. Like Outlaws did not meet expectations. Like they've got investors like pressuring them to take the company private.
Not the first time.
No,
yeah,
definitely not the first time. Guillemot has gotten up on a stage.
It's like, we're healthy, we're good.
It's been like, everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Thank you so much for not shooting us.
So the funny thing, if you're in the Nextlander verse, we will have recorded the Planorama, which will go up later, where I think we mention... did I mention on the air, or was it right after? I was like, hey, did you guys see this Ubisoft stuff about... And then we're like, yeah, they won't delay it. That's like, they're in a financial strait. Like, they need the money.
Look, you
never say never, I guess, right?
Take a lot of shots you're going to miss eventually.
Or you remember the ones you hit. And this one was one where I thought, they'll push it. This will get like a December release at the latest here, but no, February.
Yeah.
And now this came out, and they haven't updated. This is how hot this is. They haven't updated their official pages yet. They still have the November date on their official pages, but they have put out an investor paper, like a note to investors about what's going on here. And Brad, you want to kind of sum up what they're saying here, because there's like maybe one or two important facts in here in their investor speak.
Yeah, they have, and this all happened right before we came back in here to record, so I haven't read this super closely, but they are updating financial targets for fiscal 24-25.
Mm-hmm.
The revised targets are mainly a reflection of decisions taken for Assassin's Creed Shadows and the softer than expected launch for Star Wars Outlaws.
Which we knew we had just mentioned before that maybe it didn't.
Word has been around for a bit about that.
They have not met their revenue goals on the back of a game that I'm sure they expected to do quite well.
So we are real time absorbing this and reading this, and I would like to read this paragraph because I just talked about jumping back into Star Wars Outlaws. So I'd like to just kind of quickly read what they have to say about that before we get back to Shadow, which is despite receiving solid ratings, et cetera, they go through their solid ratings. Star Wars Outlaws initial sales proved rather softer than expected. In response to player feedback, Ubisoft's dev teams are currently fully mobilized to swiftly implement a series of updates to polish and improve the player experience in order to engage a large audience during the holiday season to position Star Wars Outlaws as a strong, long-term performer. The game will be available on Steam on November 21st. Damn it! Just finish your damn game so I can play it.
Yep.
Just make your game.
I said it last week or the week before. Like, people give me grief for not wanting to play a game that is clearly not done, but fucking like it's right here on the paper.
Just make your... You're killing me.
Look.
They themselves are admitting it to financial people who are the only people they actually care about. Our games are not done. Like we need this game to be better, and we are going to continue polishing it by the holidays. We admit that it was not there.
And it took something like a Star Wars game eating it for them to actually make this kind of pivot.
Yeah,
that's the other part here.
I would like to know what their definition of eating it is, because it's possible that it still did reasonably well, but just not the gangbusters they wanted. But even, if they miss expectations, they're accountable to investors for that.
Well, keep in mind, though, like it's even if that game is selling reasonably well, we don't know what they spent on it.
Yeah, that's true. It does seem like a pretty expensive game. There's a lot in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, they kind of then cite that as like, all right, so like heads up, we can't miss with this one, right? So we're gonna take the time, and this is what they're saying. This delay will enable the biggest entry in the franchise. This is what they're calling.
That's what they keep saying.
Yeah,
for Assassins, you mean?
Yeah, for Assassins. Yeah. To fully deliver on its ambition, notably by fulfilling the promise of our dual protagonist adventure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They say they're going to depart from the traditional season pass model, and all players will be able to enjoy the game at the same time on February 14th. That includes what they call a return to their Steam Day 1 launch. So, Outlaws is coming, what is it, like a month and a half, 2 months after to Steam?
Actually almost 3 months after.
3 months?
I don't know if had that been announced. Had the Steam release for Outlaws been announced previously, or is that new? I'm not sure.
I have it on the PlayStation, so I wasn't tracking it on
Me either.
PC.
Yeah. But Ubisoft has been on the PC doing this for a while, the Epic Store and their own launcher, but not Steam at launch. And in fact, in some cases, I think it's been like a year later on Steam. So I guess, like every other publisher that has learned this lesson over the years, they're coming crawling back to Steam with Shadows, it looks like.
Well, so Shadows, there's weird language in here, and maybe it's not weird. This whole thing I kind of despise, the whole structuring of this memo that went out, but they say, again, we are departing from the traditional season pass model. All players will be able to enjoy the game at the same time on February 14th, and those players who pre-order the game will be granted the first expansion for free. So does that just mean they're not selling the expansions in a season pass? They just sell them a la carte?
It sounds like an expansion that they probably were planning to sell. They are now going to give away as some kind of preemptive make good for
people who pre-ordered?
For a whiff that hasn't even happened yet. This is like weird.
Yeah,
this game's not even out yet, and they're already like, hey, we're going to make this thing free to make you happier, but like,
well, if you
nobody's had a chance to be unhappy with the game yet.
Yeah.
They're trying to goose pre-order numbers, I guess.
This all feels very panicky to me in a way that I guess maybe I'm just not used to seeing it. I mean, look, it's not like Ubisoft hasn't had other things where they have flailed around a lot. Like during that whole thing where there was that almost hostile takeover of the company. They seemed very panicky then too. But I'm getting shades of that now. Like the way they are talking to investors about this, making this big of a move for what was left of their holiday schedule for this year. It feels like there is something pressing happening here that is maybe more than even like what this investor message is saying.
Look, they make big games.
Yeah. But they've been making big games for a long time.
And big,
including some very
games.
broken ones.
Yeah, but that cost of game dev has not gone down. I'm being facetious here. They make very big games, but they also still make look, Just Dance is coming out, next month? So, I'm sure that thing will move just fine, but I would think the pre-order thing, like you said, Brad, is to drive pre-orders, to get some financials on the books as they close out their year, to be like, look, we have all these pre-orders in, relax, everybody. Mm-hmm. I just think their model of game making is harder than ever now. Like, their games, they're one of the biggest... How many studios do they have? Like 400,000 across the world. Like when a Ubisoft credits roll on a game, it takes forever.
It's like 20 different studios touching a game now. Like this the JPEG that the Assassin's Creed Twitter account posted straight up. Where is the line? It's signed on behalf of all teams working on Assassin's Creed Shadows. So like even there now, like they just have to be like, hey, you know what? There are a lot of teams involved in this thing. We're just going to put them all under one umbrella.
So the thing that drives me a little bananas here, I think Alex, you were kind of alluding to it, is like, I don't like what do you they kind of say we're going and we're going to polish this up, right? Did it really take this thing coming out, Star Wars coming out, being like, we're not going to be able to just kind of shove this out the door. We have to take more time with it. In a world where Star Wars did fine, do we get a lesser Assassin's Creed because they feel like they can just patch it live? Like,
it really does feel like almost like this is them copping to the fact that this game was not 100% baked before they were getting ready to ship it out.
Yeah,
which is kind of not super surprising. Like the pitch for this game, they're doing a bunch of new stuff, with like evolving environments and weather and time of day or seasonal stuff. Seasons change everything, as we know. So like trying to shove a bunch of new systems in there in an open world game that is always a little janky at launch, like not surprising.
But we're so close. We are so close to the release of this thing. It is. I mean, like the teams. I'm not putting this on them. Who knows what's going on internally with their targets? But like those, it must be either a sense of release or things are on fire, right? Like, do you have a sense of relief? Like, oh, great, okay, we have a few more months to get this out, or is it like, hey, heads up, everybody, you're working through Christmas. Like, we are all hands on deck for making sure that you are going to support the company. This is our marquee title now.
It's probably the latter. What was the date? I'm trying to find this. Was it the 8th of November?
For the initial release?
Yeah.
Well, it's still up on their page. It's the 15th.
Oh, 15th.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, They were probably getting fairly close to having to go into certification for consoles at this point.
So you also got to play, if you bought the premium edition, you got to play 3 days early. I kind of, from their language, make sure it sounds like that's just going away. Everybody will play the game on day one.
Seems like it. Yeah,
sounds like it. And you'll get that first expansion for free if you pre-order.
Let me look up what that. Yeah, right, exactly. Let me look up what their pre-order now to get a bonus quest. Pre-order now any edition to receive the bonus quest. Thrown through the dogs. Bop, 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 bop. Oh boy, let me look at their matrix here. Okay, so they did have a season pass for sure. Includes 2 upcoming expansions. If you bought the gold edition. And the Ultimate Pack gave you that stuff and some skins. So sounds like they're just going to ditch that, and what they will give you the for pre-ordering. Give you that one for what if you bought the gold? I don't know. This again. This was not a public facing necessarily.
No, this is for
they know
investors.
the public is going to read this, but
yeah,
it's not the information the purchasers would need.
Yeah, I mean they do mention in this investor messaging that they are doubling down on their, quote, 2 key verticals, open world adventures and games as a service native experiences.
I still hate that acronym, the GAS.
So, yes, but just in case you thought they were going to start making different types of games, think again. Lastly, we have to mention that for better or worse, he pays some lip service to some of the controversy, let's say, around some of their games. Finally, let me address some of the polarized comments around Ubisoft lately. I want to reaffirm that we are an entertainment-first company, creating games for the broadest possible audience, and our goal is not to push any specific agenda. We remain committed to creating games for fans and players that everyone can enjoy.
I mean, like, that's what you have to say, because, it's true on some level. This is not about people pushing an agenda. It's about people who are pushing an agenda freaking out because not everything is catering to them.
Yeah, that is exactly it. I mean, as always, the people who scream the loudest about an agenda being pushed are themselves the one pushing agendas the hardest.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know if he puts that in here to mollify investors who are panicking about this stuff, or if that actually played into their decision making. I have no idea. I can't imagine they're going to make any major changes to Shadows in terms of, the basic details of the game.
It's so late. I assume these are just polish passes.
It has to be, yeah. There's no way content is changing in that game.
Yeah, surely not.
I mean, look, I will never say never. Maybe something does change, but
okay, there's no way content is changing in that time frame.
It just seems extremely unlikely to go and do anything significant in terms of a gameplay change. Maybe they'll edit content, maybe they'll. But if you're going to try and change the flow, that's not
going to happen.
Polish it up, get it good, but also polish it up before you release it, or expand the window out to release the game your developers want to release.
Yes. Also, does this mean I should just not play Outlaws until the holidays now? Because that's kind of what this sounds like.
I'm too deep in. I don't know what they're going to change. If they had a list of like, hey, here's what we're working on, I would maybe be able to make more of an informed decision. But like at this point, if they're just going to go in and touch up some quality of life stuff and put in no fail mode on the first mission, I'm already past there. So
let me remind you, fully mobilized
I know.
Swiftly implement.
Maybe so
the mobilization effort is underway.
Maybe somebody, here I am still spinning in circles, like waiting to do Baldur's Gate, which I should just finish up. But like,
it's like the language of putting your country on like a war economy or something. It's like we all need to do our part. Mm-hmm. Like you need to ration your gasoline so that Star Wars Outlaws can be the best it can be.
I mean, I don't know what like we've all covered this stuff for a very long time. Do you think Disney is on them being like, "What's up"?
I don't know.
Or do you think this is just financials?
I don't know. Let's get John Drake on the phone.
Yeah,
he would know.
Like, are they like, you promised we would get this return? People are talking about this. I had missed until this story came up, any of the cultural stuff that was going on, or is it even maybe an overstatement to say the woke stuff that was going on with Star Wars. I did not even know that was a thing. So to have to pull that in, I feel tainted now.
It fucking sucks, man.
I was just in my own little world.
Yep.
Now I know woke killed Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I mean,
Welcome
if anything,
it sucks over here.
If anything, I would say it's been way worse around Shadows than it has Outlaws. Not that Outlaws has been immune to it.
Yeah. that's delayed. That'll be next year. Hopefully they release again the game they want to release that they expect the audience to accept, and the
developers don't have to grind themselves into dust to get it there.
Seriously, and they figure it out. I mean, they pay a little bit of lip service in this press release to look ahead, and we know we got to get it more efficient and figure it out or shit. But like, I don't know, man. Make big games.
Yeah. Well, some of that is just the same struggle that every major publisher is going through right now. Of like, games got too big, graphics got too good.
Totally.
We need too many people to make these games the way we have been making them now. Oh God, what the fuck are we going to do?
And how to monetize them, right? Like, where do you kind of plug stuff in to keep a long tail on these very expensive games?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is not the most action-packed fourth quarter ever. Like there are definitely games coming out, but like this was one of the biggest ones, and now it's not here.
Yeah, though, again, I'll say, Just Dance 2025, October 15th. I bet that thing still makes money.
Oh, of course it does. And that's like the most low effort money they make every single year.
It's it's their The Sims, or you name it, what major publisher has their like quiet cash cow that is actually keeping the company afloat.
Their yearly content pack, that they can sell for $60.
So anyway, that's the delay there. We are recording this pretty close to when that press release just dropped, almost real time. So maybe there's more information coming out at the time you're listening to this. Maybe there's a forward-facing thing to consumers about what this means for your digital editions and make goods and all that stuff. Moving on to other news. Let's go back to the Sony's State of Play. Sony, maybe I'm snoozing, but boy, it really feels like they are just announcing these tighter and tighter to when the thing goes up, being like, we're doing a State of Play tomorrow. Like what?
I think it was the day before, wasn't it?
It might have been a day or two.
Was it maybe late last week? But it was not long.
So they had a State of Play. A lot of this stuff in here was kind of known quantity. Anything jump out at you guys that was
The big one is the Ghost of Tsushima sequel finally got announced, and it's Ghost of Yotei. Not a direct
protagonist.
Sequel. Yeah, new female protagonist. Not a direct sequel to the first one, which I fully just expected a Tsushima 2.
Honestly, I'm glad it's not.
I didn't finish the first one, so I don't know if there's some
there's a big time gap between the last one and this one. It's like 100 years, I think.
Oh, geez. Yeah, there are guns in this one. According to the trailer. I liked that first game quite a bit, but it also really ran out of steam after I put 20 plus hours into it.
I mean, the good news is that was only like a 30-hour game, so it didn't try to stretch itself out too far. But
weren't there 3 islands in that game? Because I put 20 hours into the first island. I never got off that first island, so
okay, yeah. I'm trying to think.
There are at least 2 islands. I know I never moved on to at least the second area of the game, so I may have just burned out on side stuff, because there's a lot of very repetitive side stuff.
I did everything in that game, and I think I topped out around 40 hours.
The only thing that went out was that cinematic trailer. There's no gameplay trailer or anything.
I think some of that was gameplay, wasn't it?
Was it gameplay? It could have been in-engine.
It was probably in-engine, I would assume, but
I'm pretty sure. Okay. Definitely the stuff at the beginning is cinematic, but
I've only seen the announcement trailer. I don't know if there was anything else that went out.
Some of the stuff very much. I mean, not like gameplay, but there's shots of her swinging a sword and stuff that I'm guessing are the combat animations.
I was just gonna say it looked very pretty.
Yeah, it looks very good.
Yeah,
the first game looked incredible for a PS4 game.
Yeah,
so I'm excited to see what they do with this.
I'm excited to see what this looked like running in a PS5 Pro.
Yes, probably look pretty good on that thing.
Zero compromises ever again. Never will we have to choose. I'm kidding. PlayStation VR 2 getting Hitman. That's welcome.
Yes. That looked pretty neat.
Hitman on PSVR 2 is a welcome thing. I mean, that's been on PC for a while, but
yeah.
It's weird. I think you guys were there when I streamed it at Giant Bomb.
Yeah.
It's definitely a different experience, but it's pretty goofy in its own right.
But yeah, I would, that's free, right? Because I think it's free on the PC, isn't it?
I think that's right.
Yeah, I would assume it's just a mode, right?
I think it was a free add-on, yes.
But I did not know. Again, maybe I'm adequately offline, but I did not know Keanu Reeves was the voice of Shadow in the next Sonic movie.
Vinny, I have this late breaking news for you.
What's up?
Keanu Reeves is the voice of Shadow in the next Sonic movie.
Hell yeah, let's go. Hey, Sonic. It's always going to be Keanu Reeves from Cyberpunk. What the fuck are you doing, Sonic?
God, I cannot believe how big those movies have gotten.
Good for them.
They are able to command like any star power they want now.
I mean, they brought Jim Carrey out of retirement. And by retirement, I mean the 3 years he wasn't acting between the last Sonic movie and this one.
But, like Idris Elba, Keanu Reeves, like they're getting the names.
Who's that? What's the guy who does Sonic? What's his name?
Ben Schwartz.
Yeah, so you think Ben Schwartz is in the recording booth and being like, guys, and they're like, shut the fuck up, let's just do the work and go home, kid.
Some didn't I see some numbers leaked for the salaries for the voice actors?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't see that.
On that movie. I don't know if it's the new one or one of the previous ones.
I don't know. Is it a lot? I assume it's a lot.
Well, it depends on who you are.
Are they points?
I bet Jim Carrey's is very high.
As usual, it really just depends on who you are. Jim Carrey's is enormous. 12 million for Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey took the risk and got there day one on Sonic, okay?
I guess.
I don't know if you remember, Jim Carrey was the first actor to ever get $20 million for a movie.
Was he?
Yes.
For what?
Are you sure?
Yes.
Was it Truman Show? What was it?
The Cable Guy.
What?
Oh, it's always the one you least expect.
Money well spent?
Oh, man.
I mean, but I'm just saying he's one of the actors that kind of started the ball rolling on astronomical actor salaries starting from the 90s on. 12 million, I mean, is still, Jim Carrey's cachet maybe is not what it used to be. That's still a lot of money.
Well, to be clear, Ben Schwartz got 500,000.
See, I think that's terrible.
Pretty big gulf there.
For the first Sonic movie?
This says it's for 3. And again, I don't think these are fully confirmed.
Maybe he got like great points on it though, because I take that deal if you got a low salary and points on this movie. If he's
getting back end points on that, then absolutely. But I don't know that he is.
I would hope so. I don't know. He was Parks and Rec, right? He had like a pretty decent career, right?
Yeah. I mean, but not like a huge one is the thing. Like he's not like a movie star, generally speaking.
Yeah, he was just like a guest star on Parks and Rec occasionally.
But I feel like he could command. Look, if they were like, we're not going to pay you that much, but we'll give you some points on this movie, and he's like, yeah, sure, that dude would have made a killing. Again, we don't know if that's true or not. But
I don't think he's making Nicholson Batman money, if that's what you're saying.
I don't know.
God, I just listened to the blank check about Batman recently. Apparently Nicholson, all told, made like 90 million on Batman.
An extraordinary amount of money.
And that was in late 80s money.
Yeah.
Was that because he got points on the Batman movie?
Yes, because he agreed to a points on the back end deal.
I think he got part of like every piece of merch sold.
Yes, there was a small chunk of merch that all went to him as well.
Damn.
Not just Joker merch. Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah. Get on that. The reason we bring that up is I guess there's DLC coming for Sonic Cross Shadows Generation, which comes out this month, which will have Keanu Reeves as, I assume, Shadow?
As Shadow, yes.
Seems like it.
Be weird to have him not voice Shadow since he's voicing Shadow.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else got dates? Lego Horizon Adventures is coming out November 14th.
Yeah, that was kind of a surprise drop. I'm surprised that didn't have a date for so long, but I guess.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, even like at Summer Game Fest when I played it, I was like, I think they were saying this year, but that was it.
Yeah.
What else is going on here? Some stuff that I'm trying to think of. Legacy. They're doing a remaster of Soul Reaver 1 and 2. Any Soul Reaver fans?
No, but I should be. I feel like, okay, I'm sorry. This is a very ignorant question. What's Soul Reaver and Legacy of Kain?
So, I mean, I was here. I'm the crusty old person about saying like Legacy of Kain is my Legacy of Kain.
Okay.
Like Blood Omen is my Legacy of Kain, the first one, but Soul Reaver was a spinoff. Soul Reaver Legacy of Kain was a top-down 2D graphics, like Zelda style game.
Uh-huh.
Soul Reaver is a third-person 3D game.
Same universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how connected they are. I never played the Soul Reaver games. People love those games though.
Yeah.
They do. There's like a weird amount of like, just like cult classic status around those games.
Yeah. So it's it's cool. Those are coming to PS4 and 5 in December. Oh, and Xbox. That's not just PlayStation. Lunar is coming to the PlayStation 5. Also,
wait, I might have skipped over this one.
Lunar Remastered Collection 1 and 2.
Like the RPG?
Yes. The 90s CD RPGs of great renown, let's say.
Uh-huh.
Was that... I knew them on the Sega CD. Were they originally Sega CD games, or did they come out on like PC Engine first?
I don't know.
Oh, no.
It is not a franchise I am super familiar with.
Or was it Saturn? Not Sega CD. I guess it's Saturn? Ask me anything about Lunar.
What's going on with Lunar?
I guess it was not. Why did I think that was a Sega CD game?
Well, it's coming to the PlayStation 5. That much is for sure.
I think it might have been Saturn.
Anime cutscenes.
Yes,
where
it's got some very classic 90s anime CD-ROM cutscenes.
Yeah.
It was a Saturn game first. I don't know how in my mind I thought it was a Sega CD. Anyway. Yeah, that's cool. They're doing widescreen. They're making them a bit more modern, better pixel art and stuff. I don't know what localization they're going with, because this is getting way into the 90s weeds, but Lunar was probably the marquee release from Working Designs, who was possibly the most reviled localizer of Japanese RPGs in the 90s for all the crazy liberties they took with the games.
So what does that mean? Does that mean now if they made a terrible translation, does that mean it has to be that translation? Because otherwise you are impugning on the on my Lunar. I don't
know how many people look back fondly on the Working Designs versions.
Okay.
I'm guessing these are getting new localizations, or they may have in the past. There may have been re-releases before this where they did new translations.
You're going to piss someone off, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and undoubtedly.
Anyway, more than you ever wanted to know about Lunar, which is coming soon.
I don't know. It's one of those things that I feel like I saw the box for it or saw something for it, and I was like, oh man, look, it's like a movie in there. But then it's like, okay.
Not only was it early CD-ROM, so oh my god, there's anime in this game. That was also one of the games, if you knew people who were into imports at the time, it's oh, you gotta play Lunar.
Gotta play Lunar.
It's you can't believe the games Japan is getting. You've got to see this stuff. It was one of those that there's a lot of mystique around a lot of the games out of Japan that were not coming out here until they did.
Did the Lake House expansion stuff, is that the first date we're getting? Because that's this month.
I think so. Had they talked about that expansion? I guess
I just
for Alan Wake, we should say.
I was not expecting it, so I saw that here and was like,
I
what
certainly
is this?
wasn't expecting it.
I thought, I don't know why, I thought they were done with DLC for Alan Wake, but I guess that 3-episode thing was one release before, right?
Yeah, that was cool.
So I guess this is, because they did 2 DLCs for the first Alan Wake and for Control, so I guess this does make sense that it's their second one, and it's coming out this month.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Is it on that physical release, I wonder?
Ooh, that's a great question. Like packed in with it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because it has, that physical release has the first DLC on it.
That's a great question. Let me check the date on it, because if it's the same date, then I'm going to say yes. The date for the expansion.
Oh, it comes with an expansion pass.
Oh,
so
okay.
Which gets you Night Springs and the Lake House, but I wonder if the Lake House is a download. Or maybe Night Springs is as well.
That would make sense.
Which is mainly relevant because people were very upset about that game not getting a physical release, because a lot of people, understandably, still want to own a disc with the entire game on it.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So the DLC may not be on that disc. I'm not sure.
That's the Deluxe Edition release is the 27th. And then what's the date on this? Is it just say October?
Yes, it just says October right now.
Okay. That's cool though. I really like that other expansion. It was a very approachable and digestible piece of content that I really liked. Still like that universe.
Yeah. There's a bunch of other indies and stuff on here that look pretty cool.
Yeah.
Free Astrobot DLC coming this fall.
That's awesome.
I think they had talked some about that before, but I think they gave more details. 10 new bots to rescue, 5 online speedrun levels.
Somebody mentioned that if you get the bots, there's a couple of bots in Astrobots, the Astro's Playroom, I guess, where they come into the game.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it'll be cool. In your your space there.
Yeah, because they did add new bots to Playroom as well. Monster Hunter Wild's got a date I forgot to mention.
Oh, that didn't have a date, did it?
February 28th.
Okay,
is the date for that. That game looks pretty good.
Right near Assassin's Creed.
Mm-hmm. February continues to be the stealth strongest month for video games.
I guess so.
It's where they all get delayed to.
Nothing else that I saw when I was scrolling through this. I did not watch this live.
That's most of the big hits. Like Fantasian got a date for PS5. I don't think that it had a date before. What else? Some other stuff. I'm just gonna shout out Fear the Spotlight really quick. They showed a short trailer for that. I was really impressed with that game at the Summer Game Fest. I think I may have talked about it on here.
I think
it's
you did.
PS1,
swimmy vertices,
sort of Resident Evil, but less combat focused. But I just thought the presentation was really impressive, and I'm looking forward to playing that, which is out on
October as well.
Less than a month, October 22nd.
Oh, I don't know if we have that on our Planorama.
I don't think it had a date when we recorded that.
Okay,
because I talked about it before. I'm repeating myself, but that was the game that was out last fall, and then they took it off of the market.
Yes,
because a publisher came in to give them more money to make it better.
Got it.
So it's kind of coming back out now.
Right now. Let's see if it has a date.
That was most everything in this thing, with the exception of Palworld is coming to PS5, which leads us right into our next story.
Nice, good segue. Is it coming to PS5?
In fact, it came out on PS5. It launched like that day, which was yesterday at the time of this recording, except in Japan, where Nintendo has finally sued the makers of Palworld.
Or announced their grand machination, their grand plans. I'm sure ink was set to paper day one, but the blitz is on, the barrage is fired.
Have they been building a case this entire time? Maybe. Nintendo says that Palworld infringes multiple patent rights, quote unquote. Pocket Pair, the developer of Palworld, says they have not been informed exactly which patents they are infringing yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it. There's really not a lot more detail about this other than this suit is happening.
Well, one thing we know is that Nintendo does own a great many patents, some of which are for things that are incredibly granular and you would not expect a company to own a single patent on. So there are any number of different ways they could be approaching this.
Yeah, I mean, God help me, I am no IP lawyer, but what would a patent be in this situation? Because like character designs, I would think fall under like copyright or trademark.
You're right.
Like patents usually granted for like mechanisms in the software context.
It can be design
like
elements too, though.
Yeah, that's sure.
It could be like throwing a Pokeball.
It could be actually, you're totally right. It could absolutely. Did they patent the use of a Pokeball in a video game?
They may have.
Look, I'll tell you again, my one brush up against this is that Harmonix, when I worked there, owned the patent on the exact kind of note lane that you only ever saw in Rock Band and Guitar Hero games. And in fact, there was a big lawsuit that was ongoing between the two companies when Guitar Hero was using that particular patent. And my recollection is that when things got settled, Harmonix was making money on every Guitar Hero game ever sold, including all the ones they did not work on because they were using that particular note lane. So in this case, it could be any number of things. Like the obvious thing, yes, is that it's fucking Pokemon with guns. But there are any number of other things they could probably pull out of their ass to say, "Oh yeah, no, we own the patent on red. Like you can't put red in your game unless you pay us."
Can you play this game?
They might actually have it.
Can you play this game with a D-pad? Actually, you can't
because we own the D-pad.
Right. It's kind of the thing. Like, look, everybody who has a set of eyeballs saw the similarities between Palworld and Pokemon, but. I'm not saying people aren't wrong to voice their opinion, but like Nintendo's got this. If they feel like they want to sue the pants off of the makers of Palworld, they don't need anybody's help to amplify that noise. You know,
I think this is confirmed. They have never lost a lawsuit they initiated themselves.
Is that right? In Japan, I assume most of those are in Japan.
I think the majority of them are filed in Japan, but yes,
okay. Like if Nintendo whiffs anything here, they will go after it, and they will go after it with gusto. They are very lawyery.
Yeah, they are bloodthirsty and they are exacting. That is a deadly combination. But like people, there was just like this vibe that of like people going after other people who are enjoying Palworld, being like, you can't believe you enjoy this thing, like it's ripping off Nintendo, and be like, look, Nintendo will sort itself out. It's okay. I swear to God, I don't think this would have happened if Palworld had not gotten as big as it did. I think if it had stayed a fairly fringe thing and not really gotten a great deal of attention, I think it might not have drawn the fucking Eye of Bowser upon it. But
yeah.
I think it became too big, and at some point, someone at Nintendo just told their lawyers, start figuring out all the things that we can get them on legally, and let's just do this.
Yeah, I mean, 404 Media ran a piece where they spoke to Serkin Toto, who's one of the more prominent games analysts that you see in the press a lot, who said basically exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
You think it would have just been a cease and desist, and they would have just backed down at that point?
I don't know. I mean, his take is that A, they are patent trolling basically, but B, they're probably going to win anyway because they're Nintendo.
Yeah,
and that they probably only did this because the game got so big.
I assume this is filed in Japan, and both parties are in Japan. Do you know?
Yes, okay. Pocket Pair is a Japanese developer.
Okay,
so that's why the game's not coming out there on PS5 yet.
Again, I can't believe this is like at least the second time we said this. A game that might be for sale that might not be for sale in the future.
Who can say?
Or Pocket Pair will owe Nintendo a lot of money.
Yeah, they might just be getting some money off every copy sold if they reach the settlement stage.
Yeah, or just a lump settlement. Speaking of games that are not on sale anymore.
Oh yeah, this one was really sad. This was kind of a depressing part of the Concord tale. Yeah,
like Kotaku has an update speaking to some sources inside Firewalk, the developers of Concord. Like the top line here is that the director has stepped down from his directorial position. He has not resigned, but he's moving into like a support role is the word they use. But like the lead that is kind of buried here is that like they still have no idea what's going to happen with the game. Yeah. Apparently. The studio, like the studio is described as basically sitting around waiting for Sony's decision on what's going to happen with this thing still.
I mean, this story on Kotaku also kind of implies that not only waiting to see what happens with the game, but by implication, what happens with the studio, right?
Yeah. Where does this go?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure it sucks ass to spend this many years of your life working like crazy on something for it to fail like this. Like, I'm sure that sucks, but I'm sure the more pressing concern for most people there at this point is like, hey, am I going to still have a job or not?
Like, what is our future?
Right. Like, and to have, I mean, I'm sure it's a complicated decision, and Sony's got all kinds of factors to consider, and they can't just shoot from the hip on this, but still, as just a developer on the ground, I'm sure sitting around waiting to know what the future of the studio is really rough.
The part of this story that kind of made me, look, I wasn't bawling in tears, but that was like, man, this is rough, is the part where they're describing the lead, is it Ryan Ellis, who is the game director, basically having poured himself into the game and then not being able to even like hold meetings afterward when it was becoming apparent that this thing was doing very poorly. Yeah. Yep. I can see it. Yeah, totally. Like, I mean, it must be exhausted and just like, you cross that finish line and I was like, pulling it down. It was just really, it's an exceptional circumstance. Yes. Yeah. This is Ethan Gatch over at Kotaku writing this. He spoke to 3 sources at the studio. They are pessimistic Concord will return, is the line. Mm-hmm. Some have been asked to explore pitches for something completely different. Speculation among some staff has also included whether the studio could be used as code development on one of Sony's other first-party projects. Mm-hmm. Others feel like mass layoffs will be the most likely result of Concord's failure, including the possible shutdown of the entire studio. So, it does not sound like anybody is very bullish over there about the outcome of the Concord situation. Did, I feel like I might be misremembering this, but remember that animated, Alex, we watched it together. Remember that animated series they're doing for like, almost like cutscenes that they're going to put on Amazon for a couple of games. Mega Man had one.
Yeah. That series.
Was there one in for Concord?
There was supposed to be.
Okay.
There are animated shorts for Concord. I don't remember exactly where they're.
I can't remember the name of that.
It's in that Amazon anthology series they were talking about. The one that has like Mega Man and stuff in it.
Yeah, I forget the name of that thing. I think it looked cool, by the way. But I wonder if those move forward, or do you release those, or is that just like too weird? Did those never come out? They never. I don't think it ran. I don't think
they're not out yet.
Yeah, I don't think it came out yet. I don't think. Again, I could be wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen. I've been wanting to see that like Mega Man one and the Warhammer one. I don't know. That's this is a very human take on this story, which the Concord story, which is rough. It's rough.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, less definitive than I would have expected. Like I really would have thought that some decision was in the process of being made. I'm sure it is at some high level, but
it's still like I said, it's still thank goodness an anomaly, right? Like you just don't see something like this big get launched and then pulled immediately down that quickly.
It's an anomaly until it isn't anymore, and I feel like pulling the pin on something like this fast is like, I don't know, permissive is the wrong word, but like it just feels like maybe we have uncorked something that maybe is going to become more common in a bad way,
Well, I mean, I think there are a lot of extremes at play here. I mean, the story mentions that Firewalk is one of the most expensive studios to run at Sony in terms of headcount.
Maybe
so,
it's a confluence of circumstance that leads to this. Yeah. But you invest that kind of money, you probably want some return.
Yeah. I think it really is just like a ratio of how much was spent to how little was returned.
Yeah.
So hopefully this is not a trend, but we will see. Eventually, I guess they'll decide eventually what they're going to do.
Yeah. I mean, look, maybe it does feel like we're not going to see Concord come back. That's the vibe.
As of this story, it seems like anybody waiting for that should maybe stop waiting. Like I thought it would have been nice to see it come back free to play and see how it could do.
Yeah.
If they felt sincerely like they could bring Concord back, there would have been talks of a plan the second that thing got pulled down. If people are still waiting around, milling around to find out what's happening, it's because they don't know, and if they don't know, they're not going to land on bringing this game back, I don't think.
I think that game could cultivate an audience in a free-to-play context, but I mean, that takes a fair amount of work to convert the game to something like that, and I could definitely see Sony just being reluctant to throw good money after bad at this point.
You think outside of like the circles of the people listening to the show and the people who are paying a lot of attention, it gets enough of a weird buzz to come back to kind of get it some publicity?
I had considered that exact possibility, it's like the forbidden game.
Yeah, right.
It's the game you can't play anymore, and now there's like suddenly a weird clamor for it to come back.
Look, like I don't want to. I'm definitely not drawing this comparison. Like I just said, this is a very human story here, but we all remember Fortnite and then Fortnite Battle Royale, right? Like they pivoted, and that became one of the biggest games out there. Not saying there can't be a pivot. I don't think it sounds like Firewalk has the ability to call some of those shots maybe that, was happening over at Epic. But, there's always hope springs eternal. So I hope the best for the teams over there. And it sounds like this part of the story, the massive disappointment on the human level is tough.
Yeah, some of that stuff is pretty depressing to read.
This last story here, Brad, also feels kind of depressing in its own way.
Speaking of depressing,
but not as like emotionally wrought for me.
I'm mostly being facetious here because I don't know if this is ever actually going to happen. Tesuya Nomura of Square Enix, who's kind of been like the epicenter of their creative stuff for the last 20 years or more. I feel like. Feels like he's got his thumb on everything there. He did an interview with Young Jump, a Japanese website, where he's talking about how he's thinking about retiring in a few years and whether he should end Kingdom Hearts.
So that's not the depressing part to me. That part is the noble part of like, sure, yes, he's approaching his mid-50s. It'd be nice to think about retirement. Bless you if you could do it. Great. The depressing part comes a little later in that story you linked.
Yeah. Where the part where Square Enix says the Kingdom Hearts 4 is like the beginning of a whole new thing.
Where, he says, because he kind of explicitly goes out to be like, I want to finish this story. I think 4 is where we're going to finish it. This is great. I would love to finish the Kingdom Hearts tale and retire. And then, yes, they're like, this is the beginning of an epic new tale.
Well,
you're never retiring.
Well, whether he moves on or not, I'm fairly confident they will continue making Kingdom Hearts games.
As long as Disney will let them, they will continue making them.
Is he going to be there to see the Final Fantasy final release?
Oh, yeah, sure. You mean the third of the 7 trilogy?
You think that's within definitely. Like 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, didn't they say they were targeting like 3 years?
They say everything. Who knows?
I'm sure he'll be around. You could see a lot of big names like this like leave a few months before development ends or a year before, when they feel like
after the big part is done.
Like all the major details are locked in and it's just getting it over the finish line. They're like, you know what? I'm out now.
Who's the
I'm not getting any younger here.
Who's the Smash Brothers guy? The developer.
Oh my God, Sakurai.
Yeah. Maybe they can get together, just like go fishing or something.
Yeah, they're organized Sakurai's controller collection.
Come by, hang out, chill for a little bit. Yeah, that was very funny in a way that he's like, I'd love to see the end of this. This is great. You'll never see the end.
Yeah, or does he actually even want to see the end of it? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I can't keep up with Kingdom Hearts, but
nor should
I
you
never
try.
could.
That's the news.
Yeah.
We're gonna wrap up there. Brad, you got an email here. Yeah. I feel like we're running on it long here, and I want to get this thing cooking.
All right, Amelia in Denver, Colorado. Longtime fan, writing in because the reference to "Hey Dude" made me stop in my tracks.
Okay.
I actually work with one of the former actors from the show.
No kidding.
Which
Josh
one?
T.
Okay.
Josh T. I looked up Josh T. I think it's Buddy.
Okay.
Does anybody remember Buddy from Hey Dude? I think it was maybe the son.
Okay.
Hey Dude was.
So
not
I did watch a fair
mine.
amount of it.
Okay.
I have to confess, it's been so long since I watched those shows. I can't even remember if Donkey Lips is on Hey Dude or Salute Your Shorts.
That's Salute Your Shorts, I think.
I think that was Salute Your Shorts,
yeah.
right? I don't think I could remember.
I watched a lot more Salute Your Shorts, to be fair.
Yeah, I watched both. I think there was a character named Brad on Hey Dude, right?
Yes, there was Brad, there was Lucy, there was Ted, Melody, which is Christine Taylor, the wife of Ben Stiller now.
Hey Dude.
That show was completely mid, but when you were like 10 or 11 years old and it felt vaguely like the sort of drama an adult might watch, but for, your tiny still shaped mind, it was fine. It did the job. There were better shows on Nickelodeon, but it was fine.
I was 10 almost to the day when Hey Dude premiered, as a matter of fact.
Is it does that show have a laugh track?
I don't think so.
I don't think it did.
Okay. Good.
Anyway, the email ends. He said it was okay to email in and added that they are doing a convention soon.
Oh.
Ironically, I'm too young to have ever seen the show, so I mostly just call Josh a boomer.
Oh, nice. Very good.
That's very funny.
Very good.
Especially considering he was a literal child actor on that show.
Yes, that's pretty good.
I think that's going to do it for our show.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Good. Bring my spirits back up.
Yeah.
Good on you. Speaking of spirits, we've got our Watchcast moving into our Halloween block coming up soon here. But first, we've got to get through our last movie, Existenz, which will be going up. The goopy Cronenberg sci-fi, I was going to say gem. But, we'll...
Vehicle for tooth guns.
Yeah. Yeah. How do y'all
What if
feel
Cyberpunk was really goopy?
Yes. So we talk about that. We recorded that. That'll go up next week on the Patreon. But then after that, we hit our Halloween block, which is going to be a block of anthologies.
Indeed.
With our first one, Creepshow is going to be the one that kicks it off.
That's the one we're announcing on next week's episode, but I don't mind if folks know. Creepshow will be the first one for the month of October. We will have the full schedule up on the Patreon next week.
So keep an eye out for that. I'm excited for that. Always enjoy a little bit of horror in October.
And this is a lot of good bite-sized horror in various collections. I think it'll be fun.
Again, you can find the Watchcast over on our Patreon. I am working on Never Been a Better Podcast. It's the reason why I was maybe not going to get that Flight Sim thing up this week, but that hopefully Never Been a Better Podcast will go up on Friday. So you can check that out over at patreon.com/Nextlander. If you haven't, boy, ton of stuff just sitting there waiting for you. They store it all up there. You can go join up there.
We don't take things down generally.
No, knock on wood. That stuff is sitting there. You go sign up. You'll be able to scoop it all up, put it in your ear holes, and a feast for your eyes as well. Like I said, we got the Planorama coming out where you can see our dated news on some of these releases, or I can't remember how much made it into the actual show. I still have to edit that. Patreon.com/Nextlander. A bunch of different tiers there. You can pick one that fits you. We have one tier there, though, that gets their names read on this here show, the Mysterious Benefactor tier. And Alex Navarro, would you do the honors of reading our Mysterious Benefactors for us today?
I would be pleased as punch to do so. Our Mysterious Benefactors for this week are Sean Miller, RRE, Infelicitous Rips, Bayfield, Kelly F., Brian Lucier, Skywarp, John Hubbard, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, Deirdre is Fix-It Employee of the Month, Gary Pejsky, Robert Fisher, Bunny Fiend, Jad Rita, Statics, Fantasticasm89, Brian Murphy, Randy Duax, Randy Finally Mysterious Alderson, Andrew Tiefkin, Alex Wu, It's Me JP, Edward Chick, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Matthew Herrig, David Campos, and Tyler Treese.
There you go. Those are our Mysterious Benefactors. A very satisfactory list. That's the fix-it.
That's the fix-it joke. Yeah, it took me a second. I was like, wait, no, I actually do know what this means.
You do know what this is, right?
Because I have now played that game.
Very good. We will be doing our Patron's Choice, like we mentioned. I think we mentioned this earlier. It's been feels like ages ago, but I think towards the top of the show, we are going to be doing what seems like our patrons could still be voting, but it seems like we'll be going back to Shadowgate or beyond Shadowgate, and Abby Russell will hopefully be joining us for that. Thank you for voting on our Patreon. What else? I think that's kind of about it for stuff. We're hitting our game stride here. We're also hitting a part where we'll be getting towards our holiday season. That means we got things like Thanksgiving, some holidays, travel coming up. So our schedules might be a little bit all higgledy-piggledy for a bit here, but we'll let you know. Other people also getting their holiday. We got our holiday gift guide coming out, so make sure. Just kidding.
Yeah, I love reporting on holiday gifts.
That's probably it's got to still be a thing. Holiday gift guide. People
in real publications, absolutely.
It's still got to be a thing.
I call tote bags.
Okay, I call PlayStation 5 Pros.
Damn it!
Is it the gift that you should get this holiday? Give it to me 6 months early so I can write my article on it. Somebody's got a PlayStation 5 Pro and is writing a gift guide for it, right?
Digital Foundry got their hands on it. I can say
they did. Did they do were they able to release anything?
I think yesterday they put up a video where they went to Sony and messed with it.
Okay, I checked. They didn't have it in house.
Not in house yet, but they did get to test it some, I believe.
Brad, here's a very weird question. And I know you know this world and these people, so if it's too weird, you let me know. Is there a world where you retire and you're just volunteer or work at Digital Foundry?
Oh, God, no. I would be terrified.
Terrified?
I'd be terrified.
Oh, but you volunteer your time.
They have to get things right, though.
Yeah, but you don't have to publish. You could just help out. You could watch and help out.
They're professionals. I can just shoot my mouth off, and if I'm wrong, I just shrug my shoulders coyly and be like, "Oh well."
Oh, I just feel like you'd really enjoy the hey, Brad, we have some stuff we can test. You want to test it out? Check out
maybe.
Intercept these video signals and do all this stuff.
I'm kind of a fair weather fan of most of the things I'm a fan of. Where as soon as it gets serious, I'm like, I'm maybe a little intimidated now.
Fair enough.
I think Alex Spitalia is the only one I've spoken to directly over there about this, but he's straight up reading white papers and watching talks from SIGGRAPH,
I totally feel like
he's doing the real research. Those guys have to really dig into the extremely technical stuff to do what they do.
But I feel like there's a world where I'm looking at you and you're also doing that, just not on the stress level that they maybe have to deal with. You're reading a white paper.
Frankly, I approach it the same way I approached my entire school career, which is hey, whatever I can absorb through osmosis, great.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough.
If I actually have to study, sorry. I've got better things to do.
Well, you can see a lot of those better things to do over at Nextlander. Thanks everybody for listening to us. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you, Brad Shoemaker. Thank you, Alex Navarro.
Thank you.
I was trying to think of some like flight thing. Keep your wheels off the ground. Keep the plane. I'm sure
Maybe
there's a
atmosphere rise up to meet your wings.
Aw, that's
Boy, are your arms tired.
There you go. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back next week.